This boy was hunted by humans. In this world, for centuries, goblins have been prey for adventurers who rip off their ears for money. His name was Nog, a goblin, while the others only ran away. He wanted to understand why humans hunted goblins. Everyone laughed when he said that, calling him crazy. But Nog didn't give up on his plan, until one day, he killed an adventurer. And in that moment, something impossible happened. He unlocked the human's arcane system, a system that could make a weak goblin become strong. Now Nog can do something no goblin has ever done. He can unlock infinite abilities that only humans could use before. Before them appears Rectoris, the southern goblin village, with a giant mushroom at its center. Lying there, he reflects on adventurers hunting goblins just for their ears. Questioning why they take their ears, an image of a warrior chief appears before him. Turning around suddenly, he startles his friend, who doesn't understand what happened. Running, he goes up to a crowd and asks why everyone is gathered there. Apologizing, they make their way through the crowd to see what's going on. Speaking to the crowd, their leader announces that the adventurer attacks have gotten much worse. Approaching, another goblin expresses sorrow upon hearing what happened to her brother. He then asks if her brother Kraz didn't die in today's attack. She gets confused and says she thought he died last week, or maybe that was someone else. At this, he remarks that it's hard to remember who's alive with so many relatives. Shouting with conviction, the leader says he knows what they must do against the adventurers. In response to the leader, he lifts his head, considering traps or a sneak attack. Announcing his plan, the leader says they will use their numerical advantage to defeat the enemies. Interrupting the crowd, he yells for the elder to wait before continuing his speech. Turning slowly, the goblin leader just stares at him, waiting for what he has to say. He warns that this will only lead to more deaths, but the leader challenges him to offer a solution. Pressured by the others, he suggests that in the short term, they need to change the way they hunt. For the long term, he says they need to understand why the adventurers hunt them. Completely confused by the idea, the other goblins don't know how to react. The elder, on the other hand, just shows his utter contempt for the suggestion. Laughing out loud, he shouts that it's the most stupid idea he's ever heard. Beside him, his friend just watches the whole discussion unfold before her. He then hears the crowd saying they are barbarians and should be slaughtered. The elder tells him to think, stating that only brute force will drive the enemies away. Slapping his own face, he insists that in the end, all that matters is power. Frustrated with everything, he punches the wooden railing and walks away from that place. Back in his room, he complains that the elder called him a fool. From inside the room, his friend watches him, calling out his name. Carrying a hammer, he says they're going to do it, leaving her very confused. In front of her, he shows a large wooden chest with a bell hanging from it. With some effort, he starts to lift the heavy lid of the chest. Opening the chest, he says they are going to capture one of the adventurers inside it. He then finishes his plan, saying they'll find out why they hate goblins. The next day, a new sun rises over the goblin village on the hilltop. A large group of goblin hunters marches out from the main village gates. Meanwhile, loud knocks sound on the wooden door of a house named Nog. Inside, he hammers away, focusing all his attention on a new creation. He strikes a piece of metal, working on the final details of his new project. Finishing the job, he raises his arm to wipe the sweat from his face. He then sets the hammer aside, finally completing his new invention. Holding the item, he excitedly says that this should solve their problem now. At the door, he asks his friend if she's finally ready to leave. Carrying a heavy backpack, she nods, confirming she's ready to go. Leaving the village, he says the hunting party has already left, creating the perfect opportunity. Changing scenes, a group of goblins moves through a forest teeming with various species. Among all the inhabitants, the goblins are known for being the weakest. To compensate, they always attack in large numbers to overwhelm their enemies in battle. But all the creatures of the forest suffer from a common threat. In the forest, a group of humans launches an attack against the goblins. Recalling the past, the scene shows humans invading the forest and fighting constantly. They attacked everything in sight, as if searching for something specific. Known as adventurers, these hunters even used magic to attack the goblins. Just then, a goblin runs desperately, trying to escape a magical attack from behind. Hit head-on, he is completely engulfed by the pursuing attack. Soon after, another attack slices through a large structure, shattering it into pieces. Parrying the blow, an adventurer blocks the attack, which dissipates around him. Through a broken piece, an image is reflected as a voice calls out to him. Back in the present, his friend shouts at him, snapping him out of his thoughts. Apologizing, he says he was distracted, looking at the equipment on the ground. She then asks why they are there, far from the fight in the center of the forest. A quick memory shows a goblin landing a direct hit on an adventurer during a battle. He reminds her of the risk of being killed if they get too close to the chaos. He then explains that a weaker adventurer might be patrolling their area. Tightening a latch on his gauntlet, he readies himself for the next phase of the plan. He explains that the forest perimeter is the ideal place for their trap. Finding the perfect spot, she approves of the choice, and he confirms with a nod. Pointing ahead, he announces they will now set up 3 different traps. Starting with the net launcher, they prepare the first capture mechanism on the ground. Next, a bear trap is carefully placed in the middle of the tall grass. Finishing the preparations, a large slingshot is tied between 2 nearby trees. Seeing everything ready, she says the traps are incredible and is impressed, but she asks why the names are so bad, making him embarrassed by the criticism. Just then, an adventurer appears on the path, asking if anyone is around. Hidden, they watch the target get closer and closer to the taut rope. Walking without a care, the adventurer is about to step on the trap, but as he touches the rope, it simply snaps under his foot without triggering anything. Looking at the broken rope, he just shrugs and continues on his way. Watching him walk away, she asks why the trap didn't spring as it was supposed to. Confused, he says he's sure he set the trap correctly. Suddenly, the net from the launcher falls on him, trapping him in place. Laughing at the situation, she says at least his invention works perfectly. Trapped in the net, he yells for her to shut up and help him get out. Later, hidden again, he says this next trap won't fail. Pointing to a bush, she asks if the adventurer just needs to step there to trigger it. Revealing the bait, a large purple crystal is placed in the center of the bush. He explains that it's a very rare mineral and that no one can resist it. Back on the path, the adventurer stops and observes the crystal from a distance. Hiding, she asks if he noticed the bait they left behind. After a glance, the adventurer ignores the crystal and keeps walking, unconcerned. Laughing hard, she says he definitely has good taste in rocks. Moving on to the last trap, she wonders why humans don't care about minerals. With a smile, she suggests they try a new bait for the trap. Explaining her plan, she says, adventurers love goblin items. Getting an idea, he figures out a way to get the adventurer's attention. Hidden, they watch the target approach the new bait they've prepared. Stopping suddenly, the adventurer says he thought he heard something nearby. From inside the bush, he complains that a simple doll won't work. Seeing the doll, the adventurer says it's perfect for his daily quest. Then he yells for her to act, and the adventurer realizes he's fallen into a trap. With all her strength, she pulls the rope to activate the capture mechanism. Caught by the rope, the adventurer is lifted off the ground and completely immobilized. Saying it's his turn, he prepares for the second part of the plan. Swinging, he throws a bundle of ropes at the trapped man. Hitting the adventurer squarely, the blow knocks him out instantly. Securing the rope with an object, he confirms they know the next step. Unconscious, the adventurer hangs in the trap, showing no reaction to the attack. He remains motionless, completely out cold after the direct hit. Now inside a dark chest, the two look up towards the lid. Looking down, he greets the adventurer who has just woken up in the dark. The prisoner then finds himself hanging over a pit full of sharp stakes. Facing the man, he warns that he'll let him go if he decides to cooperate. In disbelief, he wonders how goblins managed to do this to him. Getting ready, they announce that first, they have some questions for the adventurer. Swinging the prisoner, he demands the adventurer tell him everything he knows. Approaching the man, he asks why he hates goblins so much. Then he says that they spend their days hunting goblins just for their teeth. At that, his friend interrupts him, saying they also take their parts. Listing the parts, she starts by mentioning that the adventurers take their ears. Next, she adds their hair to the long list of stolen items. Showing her hands, she also says the adventurers take their fingers. Shouting loudly, she finishes the list by saying they also take their teeth. Turning to her, he points out that he'd already mentioned the teeth in his question. So he repeats the question, wanting to know why they can't live in peace. Without answering, the adventurer says goblins wouldn't understand, earning him a threat. Gritting his teeth, the adventurer just glares back at the goblin without a word. To pressure him, he swings the adventurer over the spike pit again. Decisively, he warns that the adventurer will have to die for not cooperating. Even while captured, the adventurer asks if they think they can really threaten him. Suddenly seeing something, he looks to the side, in her direction. At that moment, she reveals an axe she was holding, ready to cut the rope. Terrified, the adventurer screams desperately while the goblin is completely stunned. With a precise strike, she hits the wooden post holding the trap's rope. The rope snaps, and her action sends the adventurer falling straight into the pit. He then screams her name, watching the prisoner plummet into the darkness. Falling fast, the adventurer looks down with an expression of pure panic. At the bottom of the pit, dozens of sharp stakes await him in the darkness. Stretching out his hand, he tries to reach the adventurer, screaming his friend's name. Turning to her, he asks why she cut the rope, and she defends herself. She retorts, saying that he even gave her a hand signal. But he yells back, explaining he was just trying to scare the prisoner. He continues the argument, pointing out they never even agreed on a hand signal. Realizing what she's done, she panics and screams that they've killed the man. Pointing at her, he corrects her, saying that she killed him, you idiot. Looking into the pit, they see a hand emerging from among the stakes. Seeing the hand, she suggests that he should probably go get him from down there. Outraged, he asks if she wants him to go down, but she insists. With little choice, he just turns to the pit in silence. As he's lowered by a rope, he yells at her not to let him fall. Holding the rope, She assures him that she won't let go, no matter what. As he descends, something emerges from the bottom of the pit, completely surprising him. Just then, a small, ghost-like creature flies out from one of the stakes. Confused, he shouts, asking what that thing that just appeared is. Scared, he starts kicking the air, trying to keep the little ghost away from him. But the creature flies straight into his chest, entering his body. After absorbing the ghost, he touches his own chest, completely bewildered. Looking up, he yells that the ghost went inside him, leaving her confused. With a sudden burst of strength, he quickly climbs the wall of the pit and gets out. Seeing him climb out, she asks what's gotten into him and why he didn't get the body. Explaining the situation, he says a strange spirit came out of the adventurer's body. He now sees a welcome message for the new player. Along with the ghost, a floating system window appears before his eyes. Just then, the spirit announces that he has unlocked a new acceleration skill. With a smile, the ghost asks if he accepts the new skill. Turning to his friend, he asks if she can see the talking ghost. The spirit then explains that he is the only one who can see it there. Completely confused, she asks what he's talking about. Her arms crossed. She says that if he's being haunted, it's what he deserves. Annoyed, he yells, asking why him and not her, the one who cut the rope. Looking at the screen, he asks what that thing floating in front of him is. Trying to touch the screen, his hand simply passes through the interface with no effect. Turning to her, he asks if she really can't see the screen. Stepping back a bit, he's startled by her reaction, as she doesn't understand at all. Suddenly, a group of adventurers appears, saying they heard Goblin screams. Seeing the adventurers, he immediately braces for the fight to come. Panicked, she shouts a warning that more adventurers have suddenly appeared nearby. Without wasting time, he grabs her by the arm so they can start running away together. Pulling his friend, he yells at her to run, starting a desperate escape. Seeing the two flee, one of the adventurers shouts for his men to get them. As they run through the forest, an arrow flies by and hits the tree next to them. Startled by the attack, he stops for a second and looks back. As they run, the adventurers fire more arrows in the direction of the two fugitives. Yelling for them to split up, he sees an explosion go off right behind his friend. After they separate, an adventurer chases him alone down the dirt road. While fleeing, he shouts that he takes baths, as the screen asks him to respond. Asking if the ghost ever shuts up, he warns that he's about to die. Reading the word accelerate, he realizes he can use the skill to escape. With no other choice, he finally hits the button to accept the skill. After accepting, a power begins to flow through his hand and arm. Acquiring the new skill, he hears the mage challenge him to escape the attack. Then a large fireball is launched quickly in his direction in the forest. Hitting the spot, the magic causes a huge explosion in the middle of the path. From the impact, a flaming tree starts to fall, blocking the way. Determined, he yells loudly that he's not going to die there like this. Running towards the danger, he prepares to use his new skill. With his goal in mind, he focuses on running even faster. Pushing his body, he plants his foot firmly to get maximum momentum. Gaining speed, he moves forward in a blur, quickly leaving everything behind. Activating the skill, he shoots forward at high speed to escape the imminent danger. Surprised, the mage wonders how a goblin could use a skill like that. Not giving up the chase, he prepares a new, even more powerful spell. But the goblin dodges every attack, continuing forward with speed. Moving at high speed, he braces his body to stop the run abruptly. Stopping suddenly, he stomps so hard that he cracks the entire ground. After the run, he stands in place, catching his breath. Not understanding how he got there, he wonders if he just teleported. Turning to the spirit, he dismisses the idea and asks if it was its doing. Confirming with a smile, the spirit explains that he activated a temporary acceleration. Still processing the information, he repeats the word accelerate, not quite understanding. Seeing the enemy regroup, he shouts, preparing to run again. Running once more, he warns that the ghost has a lot to explain. With a big smile, he says they'll have an interrogation after all this. Running back, he rushes through the forest as fast as he can. Arriving at the village, he's met with a scene of total destruction. Shocked by the scene, he stares at the aftermath of the adventurer's attack. Before him, several wounded and fallen goblins are scattered across the ground. Amidst the rubble, a girl cries over the body of another goblin. Seeing the destruction, he tells himself that things can't go on like this. Just then, a larger goblin calls out to him, asking if he's seen his friend. Turning around, the goblin is surprised to see he's alive and well. Without answering, he says he still hasn't seen his friend anywhere. Noticing something strange, he turns around, unable to believe what he's seeing. Running through the village, he desperately searches for his missing friend. Shouting her name, he calls out, "Where are you?" looking all around. In the middle of the crowd, he tries to push his way through to find his friend. Startling him from behind, the spirit wraps itself around his body to get his attention. After the shock, he asks if the spirit is reading his mind. With a smile, the spirit confirms it can hear all his thoughts. The spirit then explains that the analyze skill can help him find his friend. Repeating the word, He stares at the spirit, not quite understanding what a skill is. With no other choice, he agrees to do things the way the spirit suggested. Focusing his power, he prepares to activate the new analysis skill. With his eyes glowing, he focuses his vision to search for his missing friend. Using the skill, he manages to see through the crowd, finding his friend moments later. Alone in the middle of the crowd, she stands out with an aura different from the others. Shouting her name, he runs toward her to get her out of there quickly. Hearing her name, she turns around, not understanding what's happening around her. With tears in her eyes, she stares back at him, unable to say a word. Running toward him, she holds out her arms to hug him tightly. Jumping into his arms, she says she thought the adventurers had gotten him. Crying, she begs that they never get separated like that again. Holding her in his arms, he just stares back, still processing everything. With a smile, he hugs her back after finally finding her in the crowd. Watching the two, the little spirit just floats nearby with a smile on its face. Back at their home, the two of them get ready to have a long talk. Threatening the spirit, he demands that it tell him everything it knows or it'll be sorry. Not understanding the scene, she asks what the hell he's doing now. He then explains that the adventurer's ghost is helping him survive. Still sitting, she just stares at him, trying to understand the story he just told. Ignoring his friend, he insists that the spirit answer, but it offers to help instead. Warning that it can't die, the spirit flies toward her, startling her badly. After that, he starts messing with the system screen, analyzing all the options. Just then, a notification pops up, and he asks if that's this system thing. Pointing to the spirit, he confirms he's a user and asks for its name. With a big smile, the spirit confirms that all the information is correct. After the answers, he comments that it was easy, and that Pip answered everything. To his surprise, a status screen appears with his level 1 attributes. He understands that by gaining experience, he can level up and improve his attributes. Seeing his new skills, he thinks it all seems too good to be true. Looking closer, he complains about only having 2 strength points in his stats. Then he points to his friend, surprised that she has 6 times more strength. Sitting beside him, she just watches without showing any reaction to the discovery. Asking Pip, he finds out that the system reset, and he really is that weak. Alone, he starts to wonder how the adventurer got that system. He also wonders if all humans have it, which would explain their strength. Just then, he remembers the battles and the question he wanted to ask. Suddenly, the little spirit appears in front of him, interrupting his thoughts. With conviction, he declares he wants more answers about the power of that system. Getting up, he stands in front of his friend, who watches him intently. He then decides he's going to find out why the adventurers kill them. On top of that, he wants to understand what that system really is and how it works. Turning to his friend, he calls her name to tell her his new plan. With a smile, he says he has a completely crazy idea for the two of them. Raising his fist, he declares that from now on, they're going to become adventurers. Leaving the village, he says that things are finally getting interesting. With a new look, he gets ready for the journey with a mask. Adjusting his gear, he fastens the mask to his face to hide his identity. She asks if he's sure, but he says no one will recognize them. He explains that it's real adventurer's gear, so the disguise is perfect. Showing off the mask, he says it's the best disguise they could find. In a flashback, she's wearing a mage outfit and complains that it's all stupid. Smothered, he tells her to shut up and get the outfit off of him. Back in the present, she says they need weapons to fight properly. With large gauntlets, she says she likes them and will use them on their journey. She then starts punching the air, saying she's really good at fighting. Unsure of what to pick, he thinks about using the skill Pip mentioned. Activating the skill, he uses analysis to see the weapons available in the treasury. With the ability, he sees the stats of several nearby swords and daggers, but a notification warns him that he doesn't have the strength to use the weapons properly. Sighing, he resigns himself to only being strong enough to use the dagger. With the stats displayed, the basic dagger seems to be his only viable option. Picking up the weapon, he says he always imagined himself using something much bigger. In his imagination, he sees himself as a great warrior in golden armor. Back to reality, he holds the dagger and tells himself to keep dreaming. Pip then explains that he just needs to level up to use bigger weapons. The spirit also tells him he can store the dagger in his personal inventory. Not quite understanding, he asks if it's true that he can store the item. Giving the command, the dagger in his hand starts to transform into data. Surprised, he asks if the dagger disappeared, and Pip confirms that it's been stored. Pip then explains he just needs to think of the command to access the inventory. With the screen open, he tells Pip that the system is very useful. Watching from a distance, she wonders what he's freaking out about now. Not understanding it all, she just watches him with a confused look on her face. Walking through the forest, she asks what he's doing with his hands. Trying to explain, he says the ghost gave him access to the system. Not believing him, she tells him he doesn't need to keep lying about the story. Just then, they hear a voice and are startled by the sudden sound. Recognizing the voice, he runs towards it, and she asks why they're going. With a smile, he reminds her that they are adventurers now too. Approaching the location, the two of them jump into a bush to hide. Hidden, they peek through the leaves to see what was happening there. Up ahead, an adventurer complains that there are too many slimes as he fights them. His partner also wonders why they appeared so suddenly on the path. Seeing the commotion, the two look at each other, trying to understand the cause of the attack. To find out, he activates his analysis skill, focusing on the monsters and adventurers. The analysis shows the adventurer was crushing the slimes that approached him. Looking closer at the ground, he sees they were actually crushed wild berries. He realizes they had been trying to gather the berries the wrong way the whole time. Because of this, they ended up being attacked and surrounded by the forest slimes. Defending himself, the adventurer uses his shield to block the slimes' attacks. With a powerful blow, one of the slimes manages to break through the shield's defense. Staring at each other, the two partners exchange glances, unsure of what to do next. Shouting that he can't do it, he runs away, and she begs him not to go. Left alone, she complains about the coward, saying they can't escape with so many slimes. From inside the bush, he wonders how someone could abandon their friends like that. In a flashback, he remembers when he also abandoned his friends. Clenching his fist, he remembers the pain of having to leave everyone behind. Just then, his friend calls his name, snapping him out of his dark thoughts. With his hand on her face, he pulls her close and says they're going. Surrounded by the slimes, the adventurer is hit by a direct attack. Spitting blood, she feels the impact of the blow, unable to defend herself in time. Seeing this, her partner shouts her name and runs to help. Saying there's no time, she stops her from getting closer to heal her. Immediately, the slimes advance and surround them both, leaving no chance for escape. Suddenly, a mysterious figure attacks the slimes, cutting down several of them at once. Turning around, the adventurer stares at the scene, not understanding what just happened. Just then, two masked adventurers appear, and one of them tells them not to worry. With the dagger in his hand, he finishes the sentence, saying they are there to help. Surrounded by slimes, one of them comments that there are too many, and the other agrees. Suddenly, one of the slimes in their path splits in half. Then the two parts rejoin, forming a complete slime again. Seeing this, he explains that they need to crush the core to defeat them. But several other slimes keep jumping towards them relentlessly. He then says that the monsters won't stop coming as long as they're near the berries. Looking at the injured girl, he asks why she's holding her knee. As she heals, she says the damage is serious, but she can handle it. She then asks if the two of them are okay, thanking them for the unexpected rescue. Looking at each other, one asks the other if she thinks they're gnomes. Just then, one of the slimes in front of them seems to chuckle. Slapping his friend on the back, he confirms that they are gnome adventurers. Then they advance together towards the monsters to attack. Leaping into the air, he slashes a slime but misses the core again. Falling to the ground, he plants his sword as two slimes approach from the sides. Getting an idea, he watches the slime's core stand out right in front of him. Then, the slime merges with the sword, and a skill notification appears. With the power activated, he says he can now see what he needs to. His vision focuses directly on the weak point of the approaching creature. Spinning his body, he lands a precise blow, shouting that he saw the weak spot. After the victory, he asks Pip if he saw that, celebrating his achievement. Then, a new window pops up in front of him, leaving him a bit confused. Pip explains that the system gives experience points for each monster defeated. He continues, saying that with enough experience, they can level up. But as he was listening, several slimes hit him squarely from all sides. Seeing the danger, Pip suggests they talk about it after the fight. Suddenly, Gubble appears from behind and places a hand on his shoulder. Leaping over him, she delivers a powerful blow, destroying several monsters. Surprised, he comments that Gubble doesn't even need to aim for the core to win. Seeing his companion in a fighting stance, he says that Pip wasn't kidding. Clenching her fist, Gubble prepares for the fight, revealing her impressive strength. Seeing the damage notification, Nog asks Pip what happens if his HP hits 0. Pip replies that he dies, making Nog shout that he thought he would just pass out. While he argues with Pip, Laura asks him to stop because he's making her anxious. With a powerful punch, Gubble smashes one of the slimes on the ground effortlessly. Twirling his sword, Nog also manages to defeat a monster, gaining more experience. But right after, a slime lands a direct hit on his face. Leaping away, the little monster sticks its tongue out at him mockingly. On the ground, he watches Gubble get thrown forcefully against a tree trunk. Back to back, they realize they are completely surrounded by the monsters. Seeing the danger, the injured girl says they're going to die and asks what's taking so long. She then tells Laura to leave her behind and save herself. Rejecting the idea, Laura focuses, saying she promised to become an adventurer. Exhausted, The two continue to fight while Laura says she'll heal her soon. Seeing the situation, Nog looks for a way to get everyone out of there safely. Seeing the horde of slimes advancing, he realizes there are too many to handle. Tired, he thinks about using that skill again to take a chance. But suddenly, a voice says that the situation isn't that bad. Then a powerful attack sweeps past him, clearing the entire battlefield. Caught by surprise, he whips around in the direction of the attack. Gubble and Pip also look, trying to understand what just happened. The injured girl on the ground wonders if the person who arrived is him. Then, dozens of notifications appear, confirming the defeat of all the slimes. Surprised, he wonders who managed to defeat them all at once. Right after, someone steps onto the tree trunk, saying they heard they needed help. Recognizing the newcomer, Laura shouts his name, Tyrros. Tyrros then appears, walking towards them with his sword in hand. With a smile, he raises his sword and says he's glad he made it in time. Tyrros thanks them, saying he owes them a favor for saving Laura and Arya. From a distance, Laura yells at Edward, who apologizes and says he brought Tyrros. With a thumbs up, Laura warns that without their help, they'd be dead by now. Then Tyrros explains the role of a tank, while Laura calls him the worst. He holds out his hand for a shake and introduces himself to the pair as Tyrros. Faced with the outstretched hand, Nog just stares at the human's gesture without reacting. Hesitating for a moment, he just starts to stammer, not knowing what to say. Stepping in front of him, Gubble introduces herself and also says Nog's name. Shaking his hand, she asks if the favor comes with a reward. Making a gesture with his hands, Nog asks her not to be so rude. Laughing at the situation, Tyrros says he likes her energy and thinks about the reward. Then he invites them to the guild in Murog, leaving the pair shocked. With a big smile, Nog immediately accepts the invitation on their behalf. As they walk together, Gubble asks how much further it is because she's starving, and Arya agrees. Walking ahead, Tyrros tells them not to worry, as they're almost there. Thinking about Tyros's power, he wonders if his sword is special. Requesting an analysis, Pip tries to find out the stats of that powerful weapon, but the sword analysis simply fails, showing an error message on the screen. Pip then explains that the analysis level isn't high enough to work. Remembering the fight, he understands that defeating monsters increases his combat experience. Confused by the system, he asks if leveling up improves his stats. Seeing the group, Pip comments that Tyrros must be strong for the analysis not to work. Arriving at their destination, Tyrros announces that they've finally reached Murog village. Impressed with the place, the two comment on how large and advanced the village is. A fashion shop on the street surprises them, showing a new side of the place. Soon after, a blacksmith forging weapons in his workshop catches their attention. Seeing the food, Gubble tries to run, but Nog holds her back, asking her to wait. Noticing the commotion, Tyrros tells them they'll find plenty of good food at the guild. Being held back, Gubble yells and tells her companion to finally let her go. Nog just replies, asking her not to embarrass them in front of everyone. Standing on the street, Nog and Gubble stare intently at a clock in a shop window. Ticking away the hours, the old object catches their attention with its movement. Then Laura asks Nog if he was interested in that clock from the shop. Laura then offers to buy the object as a gift, and Nog repeats the word. Explaining further, she says it was the one he was looking at in the window. Then Laura remembers that gnomes invented clocks, so it would be a silly gift. Hurriedly agreeing, Nog says they have plenty, and that his grandfather gave him one. Giving up on the idea, Laura says they'll think of another gift for saving them. Pleased with the exchange, the two smile at each other. Watching the humans, he continues to smile as they walk through the bustling village. From an alley, the roar of a ferocious monster echoes down the main street. Inside a cage, the creature lunges at the pair, who are startled. In another cage, a fighter punches a green monster, telling it to stop. Asked about the cages, Tyrros explains that rare monsters are worth more when captured. Behind the bars, the monster glares at the group with eyes full of rage. Explaining the beast's fate, he says they are sent to a prison. Tyrros then adds that's just what he's heard. Calling her companion to keep moving, Gubble starts walking ahead of the group. Still looking down, he follows the others without a word. Stopping suddenly, he announces they've finally reached their final destination. Walking ahead of the group, Tyrros says that he's home now. Before an imposing building, they see the name of the Red Ravens Guild. Entering the building, the group crosses the hall towards a door. Inside, a man calls out to Tyrros, saying he was afraid he'd be late. With a smile, Tyrros apologizes and says he made two new friends. Pointing to the pair, he introduces them as Nog and Gubble, the heroes. The man just stares at the two and asks if that's really true. At that moment, Tyrros introduces him as Sephir, the guildmaster. Tyrros then says he promised a reward, and Sephir agrees with the gesture. Seeing a group gathered, Gubble asks why they're there, and he answers. Explaining how it works, Sephir says that aspirants can take the test at the guild. Tyrros mentions that's how he got in, since the guild recruits a lot. Laura then recalls that they didn't do well, which is why their rank is so low. Getting an idea, Nog realizes this is their chance to become official adventurers. As Sephir was about to get the gold, Nog asks if they can receive a different reward. Hearing the proposal, Tyrros and the guildmaster turn around with serious expressions. Instead of the gold, he asks if he and Gubble can take the exam. Caught by surprise, Tyrros reacts to his new friend's unexpected request. Turning to them, the master asks if they really want to become adventurers. Coming closer, Tyrros whispers an idea into the guildmaster's ear. After listening, Cypher announces they will have a special exam as their reward. Excited about the chance, the two prepare for the coming challenge. Cypher then reveals the test is to survive for 1 minute against Tyrros' Talon. Explaining the challenge, Cypher says that if they last 1 minute, they can join the guild. Suddenly, a quest notification pops up with the details of the new task. Understanding the system, he gets excited about the rewards and shouts, "All right!" With their fists in the air, the two then shout that they accept the challenge. As their opponent, Tyrros gets ready and tells them to start the test already. Now in position in the arena, Nog asks Gubble if she's ready to fight. Cracking her knuckles, she confirms she just needs to hold out for a single minute. Pointing at the two of them, Cypher announces the 1-minute challenge to the crowd. With a wave of his hand, he then signals for the fight to begin. Going all out, Gubble dashes towards Tyrros with incredible speed. Seeing her charge, Tyrros is shocked by the girl's explosive speed. In the crowd, a woman comments that she's never seen a gnome move like that. Remembering something, Nog sees her training and wonders if she's gotten stronger. Leaping into the air, she comes down with a powerful punch that cracks the arena floor. He quickly defends himself, blocking her attack with his own sword. The impact of their collision kicks up a huge cloud of dust throughout the arena. Thrown back, the spectators comment on her strength, and Nog says it was terrifying. Emerging from the smoke, Tyrros backs away while Gubble remains on the ground, defeated. Standing beside her, he praises the impressive force of her punch. Running to her, Nog shouts her name, but Tyrros tells him she only fainted. Turning his head, he prepares for the next challenge ahead. Holding his unconscious companion, Nog hears Tyrros call for the next opponent. Then Cypher announces the 1-minute challenge between Tyrros and Nog to the crowd. Remembering that Gubble went down in seconds, he braces himself as Pip tries to encourage him. With a memory of Laura in his mind, he focuses on his goal of surviving. But Pip corrects him, saying he needs to win, and he activates a new skill. Seeing that everything was ready, the guildmaster gives the signal to start. Using the skill, he shoots towards Tyrros at an impressive speed. Arriving right in front of him, he points his sword directly at his neck, but Tyrros manages to catch the blade with his hand, saying it's not over yet. Moving quickly, he circles his opponent to keep up the constant pressure. Trying to be even faster, he pushes his body beyond its limits. Laura says he's being too aggressive, that he doesn't seem to be just trying to survive. Finishing her thought, she says he's actually trying to beat Tyrros, but Tyrros manages to block another blow with his sword, stopping the advance. At that moment, Gubble finally wakes up, looking a little confused by the situation. Sliding back, he wonders why he can't land a hit on his opponent. Charging forward again, his attack is effortlessly blocked by his opponent's leg. He then realizes that Tyrros might have already adapted to his speed. Suddenly, Tyrros grabs him by the shoulder, stopping his movement mid-fight. Then he places a hand on his face, holding him firmly in place. Throwing him away, Tyrros asks what other tricks he has up his sleeve. Lying on the ground, he's in shock, repeating the word tricks under his breath. Desperate, he wonders what else he can use to attack his opponent. As he hits his limit, a notification appears, informing him that his skill has leveled up. Remembering the promise he made, he prepares to get up from the arena floor. Planting his foot firmly, he cracks the floor and begins to rise. Completely on his feet, he takes a new stance, ready to continue the fight. Seeing his opponent get back up, Tyrros just watches him with a slight smile. As the skill notification appears, Gubble calls out his name, worried. Then he says that if he's reached his limit, he'll just have to surpass it now. With his newfound speed, he charges at Tyrros once more. Tyrros then notices the gauntlet and realizes he has an ace up his sleeve, but he just faces the oncoming attack without taking a single step back. Appearing in front of him, Nog surprises Tyrros, who wonders if he got faster. With his power activated, Nog stares him down, and Tyrros says it can't be. Without stopping, he zips right past Tyrros, continuing to move at high speed. Impressed by his speed, Tyrros wonders if Nog was holding back the whole time. Attacking from all sides, he tries to hit Tyrros, who parries every blow. Frustrated by the defense, he wonders why he can't break through his guard. Just then, Pip warns him that he only has enough mana for one more burst of speed. Clenching his fist, he focuses, knowing he's even faster now than before. Then he charges one last time, wondering why it still hasn't worked. Preparing his sword, Tyrros positions himself for a final blow with a single motion. He then unleashes a powerful strike as Nog yells his name in response. Delivering a powerful blow, Tyrros says he did very well in the test. Saying he's going to get serious now, Tyrros prepares for his next attack. Leaping into the air, he brings his sword down on Nog on the ground. Facing the attack, He tries to say something before he's hit. With a mighty swing, Tyrros lands a direct hit, giving him no chance to defend. Even as he's thrown back, he still flashes a peace sign with his hand. Seeing her friend on the ground, Gubble screams his name in complete despair. He turns his back and says that Nog put up a good fight, but something makes him look back with an expression of utter surprise. With a hand on the ground, he declares that the fight isn't over yet. Trying to get up, he says he can still fight a little longer. Gubble runs over and yells for him to stop, begging him not to get hurt anymore. Surprised, Tyrros asks how he's still conscious after all that. Just then, the guildmaster intervenes, grabbing Tyrros' wrist to stop him. Looking at the fighter, Saphir announces that their challenge is over. Showing the timer, he announces that Nog passed the test with 10 seconds to spare. With a surprised look, Tyrros turns his head to face his opponent on the ground. Helping Nog, Gubble asks if he's okay, and he says he is. Extending a hand to him, Tyrros gets ready to welcome them. Sitting in the arena, the two listen as Tyrros congratulates them on passing the test. Placing a hand on his shoulder, he praises Nog's performance in the fight. Leaning on his friend, he says that Nog will become a great adventurer in the future. With a smile, Tyrros officially welcomes them to the Red Ravens Guild. Showing them the cards, he announces that these are their new adventurer cards. Gubble asks why hers is gray, and Nog tells her not to complain. With a hand on his chin, Tyrros realizes they don't know much about this. He explains that the guild's altar has bound the cards to each of them. Pointing to the ranks, he says that the green card is F rank. Explaining further, Tyrros says that adventurers rank up by completing guild quests. Upset, Gubble says she's more useless than Nog, and he ignores her. Excited, Tyrros suggests they start on quests to rank up right away. Looking at the quest board, Nog notices that the quests have different ranks too. Seeing a goblin hunting quest, he wonders if that's why they hunt them. Then he shows her another poster, with an even bigger reward. It was a wanted poster for Great Grom, a hero among the goblins. Taking a step forward, he's astonished by the amount they would pay for him. But Tyrros approaches, telling them to start with something easier and offering to go with them. Suddenly, Laura runs towards them, calling their names out loud. Pointing at the two of them, she says she watched their duel very closely. Then she yells in front of everyone that they aren't real gnomes. Standing there, the group watches Laura walk away with a basket of potions. With a serious look, Nog asks what she meant by that. Laura turns around and begins to explain how gnomes are usually prepared. Just then, Arya says they don't even have potions and look like newbies, embarrassing the guild. Reacting to the offense, they say they aren't newbies, but then they understand the situation. Offering the basket, Laura explains that's what they call new adventurers. Curious, the two of them approach to look at the colorful potions she brought. Handing them the vials, she says it's a thank you for their earlier help. He then wonders if adventurers really drink this kind of stuff. Holding one of the potions, he decides to analyze it to see what's inside. Just then, a system window appears, showing him the recipe for a basic potion. The notification then details that the item gradually heals the user over time. Seeing the description, he's amazed that the drink can heal someone like that. Showing them new pouches, Arya says she got them to carry the potions. With the pouches equipped, the two celebrate, saying they love getting gifts. Tyrros explains that Laura is an alchemist, and she made the potions herself. Bowing repeatedly, Nog thanks her over and over, leaving Laura laughing and flustered by the situation. At that moment, he turns to the side with an expression like he just had an idea. Remembering the recipe, he wonders if he can use the system to create potions. Seeing Pip nearby, he decides to ask about it when they're alone. Suddenly, Tyrros invites the girls to join them on their first mission. Laura asks if Arya has already recovered from the injuries she sustained earlier. With a confident smile, she assures them she's perfectly fine for the mission. Clenching her fists, she says she needs to show the duo what she's capable of. Satisfied, Tyrros announces that now that the team is complete, they can begin. Gathered at the board, the group prepares to choose their first mission. Nog points to a wolf hunting mission with a gold reward. Tyrros then asks if there's any special reason he chose that one. A system window shows that a wolf's fang is an ingredient for the potion. Playing it cool, Nog says it just looks like an easy mission to start with, for no other reason. With a finger on her chin, Laura stares at him with a very suspicious look. Ignoring the situation, Tyrros raises his fist and shouts for the group to go. After the challenge, he asks Pip what to do with the points he earned. Pip then warns him that distributing the points is a permanent decision. Remembering the equipment, he sees that certain attributes are required to use specific weapons. He also recalls that stats can be used to improve certain skills. Reviewing the fight, he notes that high attributes influence the body's natural movements. Looking at the screen, he confirms that the experience needed per level always increases over time. Putting his hands on his head, he hesitates, but Pip tells him not to worry. Then Pip says that some attributes can be improved naturally with enough effort, but he warns that it's more work than just using level-up points. With a little laugh, Pip says his strength is so low it'll improve in no time. Giving Pip a serious look, he seems to have reached a conclusion. Back at the screen, he prepares to allocate his points all at once, but suddenly, a giant armored foot stomps heavily on the ground. Suddenly, their conversation is interrupted by the arrival of a giant warrior. With a smile, Tyrros says he's back from the hunt earlier than usual. With a downward glance, the warrior says, "You know how it is." Nog just stares at him, looking a little intimidated by his presence. Focusing on his items, a necklace and a heavy sack stand out. Carrying his weapons and the sack, he steps fully into view with a smile. He then points to himself, saying he's the best at hunting goblins. Paralyzed, Nog stares at the imposing figure of the great warrior right in front of him. With wide eyes, he focuses on the man standing before him. Nearby, a group of adventurers mock a goblin caught in a trap. Shouting in anger, Zoloth says at least his trap worked. Clutching his chest, he remembers that this man kills goblins for sport. Without a second thought, he turns and starts running desperately down the stone street. Seeing the scene, Tyrros asks the others if the goblin will be okay. Not understanding a thing, Laura and Arya just look at each other, confused by the whole situation. Nog's companion says he has no idea what just happened. With a serious expression, Zoloth announces he's going after him to check it out. Far away, Nog leans against an alley wall, feeling very sick. Leaning against the wall, he laments having thought adventurers were different. In his mind, an image appears of Zoloth about to strike a fallen goblin. Then he remembers the warrior attacking another goblin who was trying to flee in a panic. Then Zoloth's voice echoes, asking why anyone would care about that. He then states that's why he's there in that place. With his hand on his face, he reveals he wants to find out why they are being hunted. Grabbing his head with both hands, he curls up on the spot. Coming up from behind, his companion finds him sitting and calls his name. Just then, the group of adventurers gathers, and Tyrros asks if he's okay. Standing beside him, his friend just watches the interaction with the other adventurers. Waving a hand, Nog replies that everything's fine, he was just feeling unwell. He then adds that it must have been something he ate earlier. Looking over, Tyrros offers to postpone the mission if he's not feeling well. Nog refuses, saying he really wants to do the mission with everyone. Lowering his gaze, he insists and promises the group that he's fine. So Tyrros just agrees with him, saying that if he says so, it's all right. Now in the forest, Tyrros explains that dire wolves should not be underestimated. Hiding in the bushes, he continues, saying they are strong and have very tough hides. Shouting, "That's enough," Arya charges forward, saying it's just an E-rank mission. Advancing as a pack, the snarling wolves prepare for the imminent attack. From their hiding spot, Pip warns that the wolves have noticed the warrior's presence. From inside the bush, Nog says yes, but he has a plan in mind. With her halberd ready, Arya charges into combat against all the wolves. Using her skill, she hits multiple enemies with a sequence of fast strikes. From a distance, Gubble observes the great speed with which the adventurer moves. Praising the warrior, Nog's friend says she was really cool. Laughing at the situation, she asks Tyrros if he didn't find it impressive too. Tyrros then says the wolves are weak and that he'll take care of the rest. Suddenly, several wolves group up and attack the warrior all at once. At this, Tyrros scolds her, asking why she didn't wait for the rest of the group. Holding her weapon, Arya tries to stop the wolf from biting down hard. The creature then manages to bite the shaft of her halberd with its sharp teeth. Coming from above, Nog lands a direct punch on the fierce wolf's head. Gubble questions if Nog has already joined the fight. With wide eyes, Arya watches the scene, completely shocked by what she's seeing. Stabbing the wolf, Nog attacks it with his dagger to help the warrior. The wolf then turns and faces Nog, who is still holding the small dagger. Clenching her fist tightly, Gubble prepares to join the fight too. Then Gubble lands a powerful punch, sending the creature flying far away. Pointing forward, she firmly completes the motion of her strike. Lying on the ground, Arya looks up, not believing what just happened. Before her, the warrior wonders if the two of them are saving her once again. Looking at his dagger, Nog realizes it didn't pierce the wolf's hide. In his mind, he remembers there's no more time to lose. Then he recalls that he needs to protect Gubble and all his other companions. His memories show him that he must protect everyone with him. Seeing his injured friends, he understands that he needs to become much stronger. Clenching his fist, he yells that he'll do it right at that moment. At that instant, Pip confirms that the points have been duly allocated in his system. Encouraged by Pip, Nog prepares for the coming fight. Stomping down hard, he completely cracks the ground beneath his feet. Moving with speed, he cuts down several wolves in a single sequence of strikes. Watching the scene, Arya wonders how he can cut through the monsters like that. As he finishes off the last wolf, she questions how he got so strong in a matter of seconds. With his arms crossed, Tyrros watches his performance with a small smile on his face. After defeating the wolf, he says, "That's it," and levels up to 5. With a determined look, he states that all he needs is to level up. Back at the guild, the group gathers to celebrate the successful mission. Raising his mug, Tyrros congratulates everyone on a great job during that day's hunt. He then says he wants to congratulate the new adventurers, Nog and Gubble. With a big smile, Tyrros raises his mug and toasts to their first mission. Everyone clinks their mugs as the system screen confirms the mission's completion. Sitting at the table, Nog starts checking the information on his system screen. Just then, Pip appears, excitedly saying that he has now reached the long-awaited level 3. Looking at the screen, he confirms that he gained 3 status points as usual. Soon after, a new option appears, allowing him to upgrade his analysis skill. Without a second's hesitation, he decides to accept the new available upgrade. With that, he successfully acquires the level 2 Analyze skill. Focusing on Tyrros, he activates his new skill to test what has changed. He can now see all the stats of his teammate's sword. Displaying the name Radiant, the screen reveals that the attributes are still unknown. Even with the analysis failing, he realizes he can see more than before. Remembering his progress, he reflects on how far he's come in just one day. With a small smile, he seems quite satisfied with his own performance. Celebrating with a raised fist, he shouts that he finally got what he wanted so badly. Holding a spoon, Arya asks what's going on with Nog right now. With a small cake in her hand, Laura says he must be proud of saving her. Approaching him, Tyrros calls him over for a quick word. With a smile, he asks if the young adventurer has a second for him. Walking together, Tyrros says he's full of surprises and a fast learner. He then reveals he has a great opportunity for him, even though he's a rookie. Showing a scroll, he presents the new proposal he's holding. Introducing the mission, he asks them to hunt the rank C great boar. He then admits it's a big leap compared to the previous mission. At that moment, Nog realizes that the goblin hunter Zoloth is also a rank C adventurer. Reading the mission paper, Nog and Pip analyze the new job offer. Explaining that the others are in, he asks Nog what he thinks of the proposal. Thinking about the offer, he reflects that a rank C mission is much more difficult. Even with help, he wonders if they'll be okay against such a powerful enemy. Clenching his fist tightly, he seems to be making a final decision on the matter. Clasping his hands, he says that the biggest risks always bring the best rewards. With determination, he confirms to Tyrros that he and Gubble will be there to help. With a smile, Tyrros says goodbye, telling them he'll see them when it's time for the mission. Back in his room, he says he's satisfied while Gubble sleeps in the next bed. While his friend sleeps, he stays awake, looking intently at his system screen. Looking at her, he quietly comments on how long their day was. Just then, Pip appears, asking what he's doing, and Nog replies that he's testing something. He then explains that he learned the potion recipe by analyzing Laura's item. Remembering the items, he says he gathered everything from the forest and the dining hall. Having the 3 ingredients, he wonders if he can submit them directly to the system. With the interface open, he and Pip look at the option to craft a basic potion. Seeing the confirmation screen, he presses the button to create the new item. Through the system's portal, the newly crafted potion appears before the young man. With the experiment's success, Nog picks up the potion, a little surprised by it all. He then says that even without knowing alchemy, the potion is just like Laura's. Looking at the vial, he realizes the potential of his new crafting ability. He now understands that the system can create items if it has the right recipe. Throughout the night, he continues to test the limits of his creation system. With his command, another potion materializes in front of his house. Surrounded by items, he admits that he might have overdone it a bit with the production. From his hiding spot, he hears a voice asking where a man named Marcus is. Then he hears the man complain that they're going to be late for the night hunt. Spying on the group, he hears one of them say that their companion was injured earlier. Zoloth then hears that a goblin tore off the injured man's finger in battle. Stepping out of the shadows, Nog approaches the group of goblin hunters. Sensing his presence, Zoloth turns to see who is approaching them. Stopping in front of the group, he asks if he can join their team. He then reveals that his wish is to hunt goblins with the group. Facing the group of hunters, he asks if he can join them. Looking at the young man, Zoloth says he recognizes him from somewhere. He then identifies him as the gnome who was with Tyrros. Recalling he got sick, Zoloth says there's no place for the weak. With an intimidating stance, Zoloth tells him to just get lost. But one of the men intervenes, saying that Nog survived Tyrros' challenge. Turning to the side, he considers the idea since they need another person. After a moment of silence, he seems to have made a decision. Turning his back, he reluctantly agrees and tells Nog to come along. As they walk, he warns that he'll leave him for dead if he gets in the group's way. Now, in the forest, one of the hunters hurries Nog, who is carrying the bait. Zoloth then tells him to use the candy bait to attract the targets. Realizing their strategy, he understands they use the goblin's love for sweets. Seeing them with the treasure, He also understands that goblins love to hoard wealth. In a flashback, two small goblins find a large treasure chest in the forest. Observing the ambush, he notices they use scents and objects to lure their targets. Recognizing their efficiency, he approaches Zoloth to ask a few questions. Getting closer, Nog comments that he seems strong and starts the conversation. He then asks why they hunt goblins instead of rarer, more difficult monsters. With a cold look, Zoloth replies that the reason is very simple. He explains that goblins are easy to kill and their parts fetch a good price. Then he shouts, asking if Nog knows the other great advantage. He then says that goblins are ugly, filthy, and he loves to hear them scream. Licking his lips, he finishes by saying he has a lot of fun with the whole situation. Giving the order, he sends everyone to their positions and the group gets ready. Shocked, Nog realizes they hunt goblins for pure, sick personal pleasure. Clenching his fist, he starts thinking about how he can stop these hunters. Suddenly, he sees two goblins approaching the exact location of the trap. Looking at the bait, the two comment that the trap is obvious and won't work. Seeing that they fell for the bait, he wonders if goblins are really that stupid. Pointing at the goblins, he yells that it's time to finish them all. Hiding in the bushes, the group of hunters just watches his unexpected action. After the warning, the two goblins quickly flee into the dark woods. Annoyed with the situation, Zoloth asks if Nog is some kind of idiot. The other hunters then comment that he's just a rookie and laugh at him. During the hunt, he tried various ways to stop the other adventurers. Using his weapon, he shoots to the side and apologizes for missing. While they were climbing, he kicks a rock that hits one of the hunters squarely. Shouting in anger, the man tells Nog to be more careful where he climbs. Turning to the hunter, he just apologizes for the accident he caused. Later, one of the men slips on the ground after stepping on something, but he realizes he can't do much more without them getting suspicious. Suddenly, Zoloth finally manages to grab one of the goblins that was fleeing nearby. Carrying his prey, he joins the others, who comment on the difficult hunt. Throwing the goblin to the ground, Zoloth orders Nog to end its life. With a fixed gaze, he stares at the terrible order he just received. Zoloth then confirms that he's new to the guild and needs to prove his worth. Giving him the chance, Zoloth says he can have the first kill of the night. Holding the dagger with trembling hands, he faces the small goblin on the ground. At that moment, his eyes widen as he hears the familiar voice of the small creature. Trembling with fear, the little goblin asks if that person is really who he thinks. Then the creature recognizes him and calls him by name, looking directly at him. Facing the small goblin, Nog wields his dagger, unsure of what to do. Looking at the young man, he realizes the goblin recognized him from the village. Zoloth then asks if he happens to know that goblin from somewhere. Making up an excuse, he says he was attacked by goblins years ago. Taking an egg from his bag, he says he wanted to overcome his fears. Pip then asks what the egg Nog is holding is for. The small goblin then recognizes the item he is holding in his hands. One of the hunters shouts that this is Nog's chance for revenge. Then the other hunter says they'll help if he needs support. With a different look, Nog states he can finish it alone, without help. Without a word, Zoloth just watches the scene unfold before him. Suddenly, a huge furry creature appears and attacks one of the hunters. Crouching down, Nog prepares to execute his secret escape plan. Next, a large stone golem strikes the other hunter with force. Seeing the monsters, the hunters wonder what those enormous creatures are. Turning quickly, Zoloth notices the movement happening around him in the forest. Roaring loudly, the creature appears and is identified as a C rank. Then the forest guardian emerges, causing the frightened hunters to retreat. Hanging from a branch, Nog desperately yells for the small goblin to run. Without a second thought, the small goblin starts running in panic across the clearing. As the monsters attack, one of the hunters shouts that they need to get out of there. Running through the forest, the goblin remembers recognizing that mysterious egg. He then understands that the egg belonged to the powerful guardian of that very forest. With his hand outstretched, Nog prepares for his next move. Firing his weapon, he secures a hook to escape the area. With the shot, the hook lodges firmly into the tree trunk. Swinging on the rope, he moves away from the cornered group of hunters. Using the momentum, he lands perfectly on a high branch. Leaping again, he fires another hook to continue his movement through the trees. From below, Zoloth just watches the whole maneuver with a keen eye. Seeing his agility, one of the hunters wonders how Nog does that. With no time to think, the forest guardian attacks the hunter with its claws. Abandoning his companion, Zoloth yells that he's a goner and they need to keep running. From above, Nog reveals that he lured the forest guardian to that location. He then continues, saying he did it to stop the cruel adventurers from hunting. Reflecting on the situation, he concludes they deserve this for killing for fun. At that moment, he remembers his new friends and the time they spent together. With a determined look, he activates one of his abilities to intervene in the fight. His acceleration activates just as the giant monster attacks. Using his speed, he shoves the hunter, saving him from the huge creature's blow. Saved at the last second, the hunter is paralyzed, not understanding what happened. From a distance, Zoloth also watches Nog's unexpected action, completely speechless. Throwing the man into the bushes, he yells for him to keep running. Staying behind, he warns that he'll draw the monster away from the group. Starting to run, he manages to get all the monsters to follow him. Facing death, he accepts his fate and says it's okay. Leaping at the last second, he yells for the giant monster to follow him now. He then fires his hook, swinging through the trees to escape the monster. Seeing the escape, the creature turns and starts chasing him through the forest. Landing on a high branch, he holds on to steady himself and face the monster. Facing the monster, he asks Pip if he has any chance of winning. The Guardian then warns that saving that human cost him his own life. Looking at Pip, he just says he understands his situation now. Seeing that the monster is a level 15 elite, he laments, saying it's a shame. Far away, their intense battle destroys a part of the forest. Swinging from a rope, Nog desperately tries to escape the forest guardian. Pip warns him that the monster is getting closer and closer. Without looking back, he yells that he already knows the creature is approaching. Almost getting caught, he wonders how far the monster will keep chasing him. Stopping on a branch, he remembers that the guardian has been protecting the forest for centuries. He forms two swords, wondering if he really has to fight. Facing the monster, he realizes he'll have to fight the powerful creature. Jumping to a tree, he manages to narrowly dodge the monster's attack. Without wasting any time, he throws the two small swords at the giant monster. As it's hit, the Guardian roars in pain as the swords dig into it. Seeing the hit land, he celebrates that his attack worked perfectly. Pulling a cord hard, he activates one of his inventions right then and there, but the mechanism fails, pulling him and Pip high into the air. As he's dragged upward, he yells for the gremlins while the creature watches from below. Letting go of the device's wire, he prepares for his next risky move. With that, he charges forward and slams right into the creature's leg, but the monster retaliates, piercing his shoulder with a claw. Taking the hit, he's thrown with great force far away. Witnessing the scene, the giant creature lets out a loud, menacing roar. Pip screams desperately, warning him to watch out for the monster. With no time to react, the creature viciously attacks him with its tail. The blow sends him flying into a tree trunk. Then, his health bar appears, showing the critical damage he's taken. Using his foot to brake, he manages to stop himself from being dragged along the ground. Crouching on a rock, he prepares for his final, risky move. With his hands ready, he says, "They're not going to die in this place." He then places one of his new devices right on the forest floor. Dodging the attack, he says the monster isn't the only one here. Suddenly, a giant hammer erupts from the ground and strikes the creature dead on. Running across the ground, he says he's not the only one who knows this forest. He then throws himself off a cliff, with Pip following right behind him. Plummeting at high speed, he and his partner scream during the long fall. On impact, he and Pip crash hard onto the forest floor. From above, the giant creature slams the ground with all its might. Looking at the monster, he wonders if his plan worked as intended. With his hand to his face, he says that of course the plan worked. Relieved, Pip comments that it was a really close call, but the creature recovers and destroys the tree with a single blow. Surprised by its strength, he can barely react to the powerful Guardian's attack. He's then hit with a punch and violently thrown backward. The impact destroys a tree and creates a crater. Lying in the hole, he remains motionless after taking the monster's devastating blow. Floating above him, Pip desperately yells for him to wake up. Seeing the monster approach, Pip begs him to hurry up and get up. Suddenly, Gubble appears and strikes the monster with an overhead blow. Hitting the creature square in the back, she attacks it by surprise. Lying on the ground, Nog is surprised to see Gubble has come to help him. Turning to him, she yells that this is his chance to fight back. Without hesitation, she attacks the monster again, shouting for Nog to hurry. With his health bar nearly empty, he activates a special ability. Realizing she's helped him, he says that Gubble saved him just in time. Hearing his thanks, she turns her face away with a small, satisfied smile. Full of energy, he advances with steady steps toward the forest guardian. Dagger in hand, he declares he's going to end this fight once and for all. He then leaps and plunges his dagger directly into the huge creature's eye. As he attacks, he thanks the Guardian for all its dedication and strength. With a powerful move, he finishes the monster off with a downward slash. Facing him one last time, the creature finally falls to the forest floor, defeated. With the mission accomplished, he tells the Guardian to finally rest in peace. Exhausted from the fight, he finally blacks out and begins to fall slowly. Seeing the fight is finally over, she runs toward him to help. Arriving just in time, she manages to catch him before he hits the ground. In her arms, He says he'd already told her what he would do. In a quick flashback, he's seen running after her when they were just little kids. Holding him tightly, she tells him they won't be separated like that again. As the sun rises, she asks why he always worries her so much. Suddenly, several system notifications appear, confirming his new level-ups. Built around a mushroom, the Goblin village stands out in the landscape. The scene then shifts to the front of a house with a sign that reads, Nog. Slowly opening his eyes, Nog begins to wake up, still looking very confused. Suddenly, he sits up in bed and lets out a startled scream. Startled, Gubble and Pip also start screaming loudly. She then punches him several times, telling him not to scare her like that. After the punches, she stops and looks at Nog, who seems dazed. Holding his head, she says she didn't mean to hit him so hard. Still sitting on the bed, Nog just stares at her with a blank expression. Climbing onto his back, she tells him to stop and asks if she didn't just save him. Looking at the screen, he receives a notification that he has reached level 6. Then another window appears, informing him that he has unlocked a new skill. Seeing so many level up windows, he wonders if it was all a dream. He yells that he went up 3 levels and Gubble tells him to stop shouting. He keeps staring at the screen, trying to understand how he gained so much experience so suddenly. In a flashback, he remembers defeating the great guardian of the forest. Just then, an elder appears at the door and announces that the guardian is dead. He says that Cain had already told them everything that happened the previous night. Looking seriously at Nog, he asks what he was doing with goblin slayers. Frightened, Nog tries to explain that he was just trying to stop them from attacking, but the elder cuts him off, asking if he's gone mad, pretending to be an adventurer. He continues, saying that even though Nog saved some goblins, the situation is different now. Pointing to the fallen monster, he asks if Nog has any idea what he's done. Trying to explain, Nog says he summoned the guardian to save Cain's life. Gubble then finishes the story, saying the creature then attacked Nog himself. Slamming his staff hard on the ground, the elder talks about the lack of choice. He says Nog should never have gotten involved in that situation in the first place. Wiping his face, he says he doesn't understand Nog's fascination with adventurers. He states that goblins and humans are enemies and asks why he doesn't get it. Angrily, Nog yells back, asking why he's the one who can't understand. Explaining his point of view, he says the adventurers aren't all that evil. She then adds that she needs to understand what the adventurers want from the goblins. With conviction, he shouts that he'll find a way for everyone to live peacefully. At this, the elder gives him one last, serious warning about his actions. Turning his back, he warns that if Nog insists on playing with the enemy, he will no longer be allowed to set foot in the village of Tyrros again. With that said, the elder turns and walks away, leaving him behind. Left behind, the two just watch the elder walk away in silence. The scene changes to the forest, where his hand touches the guardian's body. Looking at the body, he asks that the great creature may rest in peace. Together, the two stand before the fallen guardian in the clearing. Then, she looks at him and asks if he's thinking of going back there. Looking ahead, he replies that he's thinking of going back to the Red Ravens. Turning to her, he thanks Gubble for saving him that time. But then he warns her that she shouldn't come with him this time. Explaining why, he says he doesn't want her to be exiled from home too. Replying to him, she says she's been thinking a lot about everything. Looking back, she used to wonder if all this trouble was really worth it. But after meeting some of those adventurers, things started to change. Seeing them toast, she says she's starting to understand his side of things. Maybe there is a future where goblins and adventurers can finally live in harmony. Holding out her fist, she says she'll follow him to the end to help his dream. Correcting herself, she says the dream now belongs to both of them. She then shouts with conviction that their dream will become a reality. On a log, an egg and a few items are left behind in the forest. Changing locations, a group of adventurers shouts that he killed the guardian. Carrying the remains, he says they should promote his adventurer rank. Tyrros says it's an incredible feat, but asks if anyone helped him. Annoyed, he yells that the guardian appeared suddenly and attacked his group. Recalling the fight, he says that's why he killed it with his own hands. Carrying the reward, Tyrros congratulates the group on their achievement and the day's hunt. Seeing him walk away, the warrior stops him and asks where he's going. Excited, Tyrros replies that he's going to get Nog and Gubble to join them on the mission. At the mention of the name, he seems to remember the boy he called a gnome. In a quick memory, he recalls hitting Nog square on. Far away, Nog runs through the forest, making the warrior wonder if he survived. Running up, the pair calls out for Tyrros and the big warrior with him. With their hands up, they apologize for being late. Annoyed, Arya asks what took them so long and if they went for a stroll. Listening to the conversation, the warrior remains silent, thinking back to Nog. In a flashback, he remembers the blow and wonders if Nog is still alive. He recalls the boy again, thinking about that clumsy idiot he met before. Just then, Tyrros puts an arm around him and says that everyone is finally together. With a determined smile, he announces the mission can finally begin. The scene changes. Gubble complains about having to get the potions for the group. Nog replies that they were taking care of personal business, and the others didn't know. Stopping in front of a large door, they announce that they've arrived at the shop. Seeing a mission poster, Nog is shocked when he reads the hunting request. Inside the shop, they announce their arrival and say they're there to pick up an order. From behind the counter, the shop owner stares them down and asks about the red ravens. Stirring her cauldron, she says she doesn't recognize either of the two adventurers. Trying to explain, Nog says they're new and were sent by Tyrros. Just then, a heavy, firm footstep is heard approaching from behind. Entering the shop, the big warrior announces that the two are with him. Seeing the newcomer, the shop owner says it's been a while since she's seen him. He replies that he figured she wouldn't recognize the pair at first, but then he says he came to ask Nog a question directly. Looking serious, he asks how Nog survived that beast from last night. Nervously, Nog replies that he just ran faster and managed to escape the creature. The warrior then asks if it wasn't him who ended up killing the monster. With his mask crooked, Nog quickly replies that of course it wasn't him. Surprised, the warrior says he thought Nog had gotten the credit for the kill. Tossing the bag on the counter, he says that this is the Red Raven's order. Holding out her hand, the shop owner tells them to pay for the potions. Not knowing what to do, they say Tyrros didn't give them any money. To resolve the situation, the warrior places a bag of coins on the counter. Handing over the bag of coins, the warrior tells her to take the payment from there. Taking the potions, they thank her as the shop owner says goodbye. Watching the two leave, the warrior thinks that Nog couldn't handle their hunt. Remembering the blow, he concludes there's no way he could have killed that monster. Once outside, Nog looks surprised at the vials inside the bag. Back in the shop, he asks if she uses goblin blood for the potions. Confirming, she says it's a standard ingredient for making attack potions. As she lists other ingredients, he just stands there silently, processing the information. Then he remembers the clothes and armor that adventurers wear on their journeys. Thinking of the weapons, he remembers the equipment forged for them to use. Then he recalls the food that's sold and eaten by everyone in the city. Realizing the truth, he understands that monsters are just ingredients for adventurers. Even though he already knew this, he's shocked by the true scale of it all. Faced with the pile of bodies, he understands that his family is just a resource. Overcome with rage, he grips the potion vial tightly in his hand. Seeing his reaction, the witch offers him a potion for a stomachache. He refuses the help, saying he's fine and doesn't need anything. The warrior then tells them to just get back to the other adventurers. Later, the group arrives at what appears to be the boar's den. Traveling through the mountains, they follow a large trail left on the rocky path. After finding out about the adventurers, he narrates how his day took a terrible turn. The narration continues, explaining that he thought the day couldn't get any worse. Looking at the trail, he narrates that he had no idea what was coming. Moving forward, his narration ends by saying that things were about to get much worse. Shocked by the scene, Nog asks if the boar, Gummo, did all of this by himself. In response, Tyrros confirms that it appears the boar was responsible. Examining a victim, the warrior says the kills are recent. Terrified, Laura grabs onto Arya, who tells her to let go. The bodies of several other creatures are scattered across the trail. Taking in the destruction, he continues to watch in complete silence. Tyrros, already mounted, says there's no reason to waste time standing around. He then leads the way, telling the group to follow the trail. Following the trail, they advance along the narrow path between the large rocks. As they ride through the canyon, little Pip yawns beside Nog. Suddenly their mount stops and raises a leg. Noticing the halt, Tyrros looks ahead, his expression serious and alert. At that, the whole group stops in front of a huge rock formation. Laura, on her mount, points out that the trail seems to end right there. Confused, Edward asks the group what it could mean. Arya explains that the blood trail and the tracks have vanished. The warrior concludes the boar must have vanished into thin air. Confused, Nog asks if something like that is even possible. Seeing the two paths, Tyrros says it can't have gone far and suggests they split up. He gives the order. The gnomes, Arya, and Laura will take the high path. Meanwhile, he and the rest of the group will continue through the canyon. Laura looks back and asks them to use a signal flare if they find the boar. Tyrros agrees, saying they'll meet back here in 5 hours, and everyone shouts in agreement. Tyros's group then sets off, taking the high path. Elsewhere, they climb an even steeper path. Moving forward, they ride in a single file along the narrow path between the rocks. But suddenly, the lead mount stops and raises a paw. Surprised, Tyrros says he can't believe what's happening. The entire group stops mid-path, watching to see what's going on. Looking ahead, Laura is shocked to see another fork in their path. Hugo warns that if they split up again, they could be killed before help can arrive. Pip then suggests that he use his analysis skill to help the group. He explains that the evolved skill can now track the monster they're looking for. Irritated, he shouts at Pip, prompting Laura to ask who he's talking to. With a smirk, he prepares to use his new tracking skill. Focusing, he finally activates his analysis skill to search for the boar. Using his special sight, he tells the group he can see the trail. The interface confirms the trail, but he realizes the information is obscured. He understands now the boar's tracks are completely hidden. He's never seen an animal so skilled at hiding its tracks. Suspicious, he finds it odd that such a large boar could pull something like this off. Pointing down one of the paths, he tells the group Gummo went that way. Confused, Tyrros asks how he knows, since there are no tracks. He looks at Tyrros and simply says their leader will have to trust him this time. With a confident smile, he insists the boar is definitely down that path. After he points the way, the other group members seem hesitant to follow. Tyrros silently observes Nog for a moment without saying a word. Smiling, he says he trusts Nog and that the group will follow his instincts. Buoyed by the trust, Nog nods and prepares to lead the way. Suddenly, their mounts stop again, refusing to go any further. Looking at the cave entrance, Hugo says it looks like Gummo went inside. Tyrros tells the group they'll have to proceed on foot. The moment he steps into the cave, something happens. A strange sensation coming from within sends a chill down both their spines. Looking deeper into the cave, he says the feeling is familiar. Then, he spots a silhouette in the darkness ahead. Moving deeper inside, he sees Gummo's lifeless body on the ground. Next to the body, a close-up shows the hand of the attacker. The entire group is stunned into silence by the scene inside the cave. From within the darkness, an elite monster emerges, roaring at the adventurers. Pip warns that the level 27 monster is much stronger than the others. With a roar, the monster unleashes a fear ability against the group. The force of the cry throws Laura back as she struggles to hold on. Covering her ears, Arya complains that the noise is too loud. With that, the entire group braces themselves to resist the deafening roar's effect. Pip explains that the roar has weakened everyone, and Nog questions what he's seeing. He then realizes it's a benefit of his enhanced analysis skill. Advancing swiftly, the monster prepares to use its pummeling ability. Next, the creature targets Tyrros and delivers a devastating blow. With a single punch, the monster shatters the ground, kicking up dust and rocks. The impact throws the other group members away, and they fall. Seeing the danger, Nog activates his acceleration skill to act quickly. Moving at high speed, he rushes forward to save his companions from the fall. He pushes Gubble, who says she doesn't need help, and he replies, "You're welcome." Laura then creates a protective barrier and asks if everyone is feeling all right. Thanking her, Hugo says that was a great defense she put up. Nog yells for Tyrros to get out of there, warning him that the monster is too strong. Annoyed, Tyrros asks if Nog is chickening out in the face of a challenge like this. He continues, saying he thought Nog was much braver than that. With his sword in hand, Tyrros gets excited about the monster's double reward. He prepares to attack, asking if they're just going to let something so dangerous run loose. Nog tries to warn him that he doesn't get it, because the monster's level is high. But Tyrros cuts him off, telling him to help kill the creature instead of making excuses. Arya then decides to help, but Nog yells for them to wait before attacking. Gubble also wants to help, but Nog stops her, yelling for them not to interfere. With one blow, the monster hits Tyrros square on and sends him flying upwards. Then the monster roars that none of them can understand the real situation here. Suspended in midair, Tyrros stares at the monster, completely shocked by what just happened. Charging forward again, the monster lands a powerful punch right in Tyros's midsection. The impact of the blow causes a huge explosion, kicking up a massive cloud of dust. Clutching her staff, Laura is completely shocked by the giant monster's strength. Seeing the scene, he realizes they have no chance of winning this fight. At that moment, Tyrros is thrown against the wall, causing the group to scream his name. Furious, Arya glares at the monster and curses it for being so big. Ignoring Laura, she charges forward, screaming that he's done for and will pay dearly. Seeing the attack, the monster just gives the group a menacing smile. Leaping to attack, she readies her halberd to deliver a powerful strike, but the monster lifts its foot, and she is stunned by its speed. Using her halberd, she manages to block the stomp at the very last second. She then yells, surprised that something that big can be so fast. Seeing her friend in danger, Laura runs and creates a protective barrier. Even with the barrier, she warns that the monster's stomp is too heavy. Under the pressure, the barrier begins to crack, and she screams that she can't hold it. From above, Nog leaps down, shouting for them to hurry up and act. Unable to withstand the weight, the barrier shatters, and the monster completes its stomp. Far away, the other group of adventurers sees the explosion and realizes there's a fight. Seeing the signal, the The warrior tells them to get to the location as fast as possible. As he runs, he wonders what kind of boar could cause such an intense tremor. Back in the cave, the force of the attack throws the two girls far away. Amid the chaos, Nog just watches the scene with a very attentive expression. Recovering, Tyrros says the situation is perfect for what he was looking for. With a smile, he thinks that he's been waiting for a moment just like this. He finishes his thought, saying he wanted to face a truly powerful enemy. Wielding his sword, he yells that he won't back down from a B-rank monster. Facing the creature, he says he doesn't care about its fear or its strength. In a narration, he reveals that he has grown tired of the life he was living. He remembers fighting weak monsters just to scrape by. Continuing his story, he says he doesn't care how dangerous the fight is. He goes on, saying he always needs to test his limits to get stronger. Standing before him, the monster stares at Tyrros with a terrifying smile. With his power activated, he yells that he will become the strongest adventurer of all. Moving forward, Tyrros charges the monster, sword in hand. Spinning his sword, he prepares to unleash one of his most powerful strikes. Watching the attack, Nog is surprised by the sheer speed of his movements. The monster braces for the hit, and Tyrros dares it to withstand the blow. Raising his sword, he focuses, ready to release all his power at once. Exhaling, he prepares to finally execute his powerful attack. Running along the wall, he dodges a blow from the monster and keeps moving forward. Leaping toward the monster, he delivers several cuts to the creature's body. Using all his power, he readies his phoenix attack. With the explosion, the cave ceiling begins to crumble down on them. Seeing the danger, Nog shouts that Laura and Arya are there and they need to get out. He yells for Tyrros to hurry up and get out of the cave with them. Looking back, Tyrros says the fight is probably over and everything is fine, but suddenly, he starts to feel something strange coming from that same direction. From out of the dust, the monster's hand emerges and lunges at Tyrros. Opening its mouth, the monster grabs Tyrros with its teeth, trapping him. Then it throws him into the air and prepares to strike again. With one punch, it slams Tyrros with full force into the cave floor. Seeing this, Nog despairs and screams Tyrros' name once more. Trapped in the monster's hand, Tyrros struggles to break free and escape. The narration explains that the monster sacrificed its arm to protect its body. Angrily, he says he needs to kill that bastard at all costs. Looking at his friends, he thinks that their sacrifice can't be in vain. Pounding the ground, the monster continues its relentless attack on Tyrros. The narration continues, with him blaming himself for leading everyone there. Then, he says he has to be the one to end this fight. With a punch, he manages to hit the monster and break free from its grasp. With a shout, he prepares to use his power to finish the fight. Unleashing all his power, he charges the monster with determination. Just then, an object is thrown and hits the monster square in the head. With a boost, Nog manages to grab Tyrros and shouts that he's finally got him. Surprised by the help, Tyrros can only say Nog's name, not understanding. Carrying Tyrros, he says the adventurer has done enough for now. He tells Tyrros to leave the rest to him and promises to get them out. Calling for Pip, he readies their escape, and the spirit agrees. He then activates his level 2 acceleration to escape the massive monster. Blocking the punch, he manages to hold back the monster, causing a huge explosion. Witnessing the scene, Tyrros wonders how any of this is even possible. Creating a vortex, he flies out of there at high speed with Tyrros. Flying out of the cave, he yells for Gubble's help down below. Already on the ground, Gubble gets ready and says she's prepared to act. Stomping her foot hard, she tells the monster to take what it deserves. With a closed fist, she readies a punch aimed at the cave entrance. She then punches the rock wall, causing an explosion and sending debris everywhere. With that punch, the entire cave entrance collapses, sealing the passage. Seeing the reinforcements arrive, he and Tyrros just watch the scene before them. With a smile, Nog looks at his friends on the ground after the collapse. Seeing the cave sealed, he celebrates, shouting that they finally escaped. Praising his friend, he gives her a thumbs up and says it was a great punch. Returning the thumbs up, she praises his escape plan. Arriving at the scene, the other group asks if the fight is over. Seeing the state of the place, the warrior can only say, "What happened?" On the ground, the two girls are unconscious and the others look on. Sitting on the ground, Tyrros asks the group what happened, but suddenly he looks at the pile of rocks with a serious expression. From within the rubble, the monster's hand emerges and begins to move. With a single punch, it shatters the rocks and breaks free from the buried cave. Terrified, Edward says he doesn't want to stick around to find out what that is. Walking toward Nog, Tyrros says he was right about the monster. He warns that they can't win, and tells the others to run as the monster roars. Telling them to flee, he says he'll keep the monster busy by himself. Just then, the monster crouches on a rock, building momentum. Then the creature leaps with full force toward where the group was. Landing with a heavy impact, the monster is confronted by Nog, who simply says, "No!" In a flashback, he narrates that he knows what it's like to go through this again. Recalling the past, he says he's had to leave friends behind before. He had hoped that by escaping early, he could avoid a situation as desperate as this. He then remembers having to choose between himself and his friends. Explaining his decision, he says he's tired of having to make that same choice. Remembering their toast, he narrates that today, things would finally be different. Shouting with conviction, he declares that everyone is going home together this time. Seeing his attitude, Gubble just stares at him with a surprised expression. He then announces he has a plan, but he'll need everyone's help. Faced with the proposal, the great warrior just stares at him in complete silence. Recalling the monster's strength, he continues to analyze the situation closely. Finally, the great warrior agrees, saying that's fine by him. Then Tyrros also shows a confident smile, ready for the next move. The whole group then turns, following Nog's lead for the plan. Breaking through the wall, the monster charges full force at the assembled group. Giving the order, Nog tells everyone to spread out and start the plan. Stomping hard, he uses his skill to create a massive shockwave. He then leaps, dodging the attack that hits Edward head-on and sends him flying. Sliding across the ground, he tells Pip they're going to test the new skill. Looking at each other, the two get ready to activate the power. Activating the skill, he creates several clones of himself scattered across the field. Surprised, the warrior asks if those are illusions or some kind of trick. Then Edward asks when he learned a skill like that. Several clones surround the monster, getting its attention and taunting it. Annoyed, the monster roars and gets ready to attack all the surrounding clones. Seeing the attack, the real Nog just watches and prepares for the next step. The monster attacks the clones, which vanish with every strike it lands. Running from the monster, Nog narrates that he's going to use the clones to lure it in. With the monster distracted, Nog runs off to the next point in the plan. Running to the top of a hill, he sets up the next part of the plan. As the monster pursues him, Nog is reminded of the games he used to play. Leaping off the cliff, he challenges the monster to come and get him if it can. Enraged, the great creature prepares to leap after him without hesitation. The monster then leaps off the cliff, going right after Nog in midair. Astonished, the warrior shouts that the monster is jumping after the boy. Another adventurer yells, desperately telling Nog to be careful of the monster. Then one of them points, warning that the monster is right behind him in the air. Turning in midair, he gets ready to use the item he'd been saving. With the device in hand, he narrates that he was already prepared for this. Firing a grappling hook, he latches onto the rock and swings away. Meanwhile, the monster keeps falling, missing its target by a hair. Seeing the plan work, Gubble shouts in celebration that they got what they wanted. Confused, Tyrros asks where he suddenly got that grappling hook. With a huge impact, the monster slams into the ground, missing completely. Swinging, he taunts the monster, saying this is exactly what he wants. Clinging to the rock, he yells with a smile for the creature to come chase him there. Getting ready, he narrates that the monster is fast, but not fast enough for him. He then leaps and fires, declaring that as a goblin, he'll always be the fastest. Watching the scene, Edward says this is all complete and utter madness. Shocked, the warrior remarks that he's never seen an adventurer with such agility. Then, the clones rappel down and attack the monster mid-chase. Then he yells out that it's time for everyone to act at once. Giving the signal, he announces that everything is ready, just as he said. At his shout of, "Now!" the group fires several projectiles at the rock wall. Seeing the projectiles, he complains that the gremlins are going to explode and hit him. Falling toward him, the monster gets ready to finally grab him in midair. With a shot, he manages to propel himself and dodge the monster's attack. With a sigh, he's relieved to have barely escaped the attack. Seeing the plan succeeded, the group celebrates that it all worked out in the end. Seeing it's not over, Tyrros realizes the situation isn't resolved yet. With a loud crash, the ground where the monster landed begins to crack. From inside the hole, the monster's hand emerges, a sign that it's not over. Falling towards it, Nog narrates that he figured it wouldn't kill the monster. In the middle of his fall, he says he had planned all of this from the start. As they fall, he and Pip smile and narrate that this was all for him to level up. With his eyes glowing, he narrates that he wanted to land the final blow on the creature. With a precise cut, he manages to sever the rope he was attached to. Falling amidst the debris, he heads toward the monster down below. Giving the order, he shouts for Pip to help him with the attack. In response, Pip says it will be as he wishes and gets ready to act. As he falls, the narration explains that his points were allocated to his agility. With the points allocated, a notification announces that a new skill is available. Then, the system informs him that the skill upgrade has finally been completed. With the upgrade, he activates his level 3 acceleration for the attack. With a massive impact, he hits the ground, striking the monster head-on. Impressed by the scene, the warrior just watches, unable to believe what he's seeing. Amidst the debris, he continues to fall as the monster recovers from the blow. Falling at high speed, he braces for the final blow against the creature. With a single strike, he hits the monster, slicing its body from above. His attack then tears through the monster, splitting the creature completely in half. Attacking quickly, Nog cuts down the creature in his path. He then uses a larger monster's body to land. Seeing the falling rocks, Edward asks if anyone else saw that. Surprised, the other adventurer says he could have sworn he saw something there. In a quick moment, Nog's mask falls off for a second. At that moment, another masked goblin is completely shocked by what he just witnessed. Confused, one of them says he didn't see anything because Nog was too fast. When asked about it, Tyrros replies that his eyes couldn't keep up with the speed. Still laughing, he says Nog always surprises him with new skills. With a serious look, the other one comments that his evolution is almost unnatural. Several level-up notifications appear as Nog walks away. With the mission complete, an adventurer raises his mug, lamenting that he missed the action. Back at the tavern, Laura asks how he survived the fall from that height. Afterward, the group bombards him with questions about his powers and the reward. Laughing at the situation, Nog asks them to ask one question at a time. With a satisfied look, he says he's never had this much attention before. Elsewhere, Tyrros is asked what it was like to kill a B-rank monster. With a serious expression, he remembers that his leadership was irresponsible. In a flashback, he relives the moment he put everyone in great danger. He remembers that Nog was the only one who acted rationally in the face of that abomination. Wanting to be the best, Nog wouldn't lead his group to a bad end. Even though they were afraid, they fought together to secure victory. His blade then shatters upon hitting the giant monster's body. Back in the present, he wonders what he needs to do to catch up to Nog. Walking through the forest, Nog comments that they're getting recognition as adventurers, but Gubble corrects him, stating that actually, only he is famous. Intrigued, she asks where he learned to do all that. A bit awkwardly, he replies that he already told her about Pip. She then sighs, saying he always talks about that ghost. Just then, an irritated Pip appears, shouting that he's not a ghost. Gubble questions him, reminding him they're there to understand why goblins are being killed. She then accuses him of only caring about getting stronger and proving himself. Saying he understands, Nog admits that it feels good to be valued by them. He then states that the situation is very different from what he experienced before. In a flashback, other goblins called him weak because his inventions failed. There, an elder shouted to everyone that the only thing that truly mattered was power, while Nog was seen completely alone and isolated. Back in the present, Gubble warns him not to forget what would happen if they found out. Hearing the warning, Nog falls silent for a moment, just listening. Taking off her mask, she says they would kill him just like they do other monsters. He quickly puts the mask back on her, saying he's trying to prove something. Moving away from him, she says she's not sure if the adventurers are their friends. Just then, Pip appears and advises him not to forget who they really are. With a determined look, he says spending time with them makes him believe. He then smiles and claims that one day he'll be able to prove it to Gubble. Tapping his shoulder, Gubble prepares to give him an important warning. Laughing with Pip, he insists that goblins and adventurers can indeed be friends. Seeing his stubbornness, Gubble just stares at him with an astonished look. Calling him stubborn, she warns that if he wants to keep going, then fine. Without a second thought, she ends up punching him right in the head. Hidden nearby, someone watches as she tells him not to forget her warning. Thrilled with his power, he shouts that this is simply incredible. Celebrating, he says he leveled up several times for defeating the troll. Looking at the panel, he's surprised to have unlocked a useful skill. Pip then warns that he barely knows how to use this skill properly. Seeing the window, he realizes the new skill scales with his stats. Confirming this, Pip warns him he needs to be smart when using it. Ignoring the warning, he immediately jumps at the chance to test the new skill. Annoyed, Pip asks if he's even listening to what he said. Then he activates the skill and hurls the block of ice with force. With great speed, the projectile flies forward and hits the target head-on. In a flashback, he remembers the day he found the dead creature. It was from that moment on that he decided he wanted to become stronger. Back in the present, the projectile hits the mountain and causes an explosion. Remembering the fight, it's shown they were lucky to have survived the troll. In that fight, a troll was crushing a goblin. It took 5 of them to defeat it. After that battle, he concludes that no one would have gotten hurt if he were stronger. He then shouts to Pip that he wants to keep getting stronger and stronger. Pip replies that he should train more, while Nog complains about the answer. And that's exactly what he did, with the news spreading throughout the city. As the first to kill a B rank, their fame attracts many people to the guild. With their new fame, Tyrros sifts through the flood of quests that have arrived for them. Now they leave the ancient forest to face stronger monsters around the world. Meanwhile, the adventurers who witnessed the fight grew faster than anyone else. The entire group starts fighting with more urgency, just like Edward in that battle. Hugo and Laura also hone their skills. facing all the new dangers. Fighting a giant monster, he urgently seeks to become stronger. With his sword in flames, Tyrros prepares for combat against the demon. He faces his opponent, positioning himself to deliver what seems to be the final blow. The journey then reveals good times, as a photo shows the whole group together. 2 months later, while working as an adventurer, he ends up stepping on a small creature. On the building's roof, Nog and Gubble finally get a moment of rest. Watching the starry sky, he comments to her on how peaceful the night is. Seeing a shooting star, he says that maybe they're getting too comfortable there. Suddenly, a shout of their names startles them both. From down below, Arya asks what they're doing up on the roof. She then informs them that the guild master is calling everyone for something urgent. With the order given, they must go to the main hall with their equipment. While getting ready, Gubble wonders what the master wants so late at night. Walking with the rest of the group, Nog says they'll find out soon enough. Arriving at the hall, they find Master Sephir on a platform. Clearing his throat, he prepares to begin his speech to all the members. He then informs them that the Red Ravens have risen in the guild rankings over the last month. Among the crowd, some members comment that their efforts have finally been noticed. With a serious look, Tyrros just listens intently to the guildmaster's words. It's then said that news of the guild's rise has already spread. Hearing the news, Nog and Gubble react with great surprise and astonishment. At that moment, a man announces he has come from the kingdom of Cromor to recruit adventurers. With him, 2 warriors with strange appearances suddenly emerge in the hall. Revealed to be A rank, the first is introduced as the adventurer Hale. Immediately after, the other A rank adventurer is introduced as Dorian. The man then shouts that they are seeking talent for an A-rank mission. Shocked by the news, Nog and Pip can't hide their astonishment. He then comments on the kingdom of Cromor being the most powerful empire. Seeing the opportunity, Tyrros is visibly excited by what he's just heard. The messenger continues, saying the king has summoned only worthy adventurers. With a scroll in hand, he asks those summoned to step forward. Then Tyrros Talon, B rank, is the first name to be called. After him, Goliath Valor, also B rank, is next on the list. Next, Arya Windwalker, C rank, is summoned for the royal mission. Finally, Laura Rivers, also C rank, has her name announced to everyone. Continuing on, Edward Wolf, C rank, also has his name called. Right after him, Nathan Wren, C rank, is the next to be announced. Continuing the summons, Killian White, C rank, is also called for the mission. To the surprise of many, Gubble, C rank, also ends up being summoned. With great suspense, the messenger prepares to announce the last name on the list. And finally, he reveals that Nog, B rank, is the last one summoned. Around a campfire, the group of adventurers relaxes for the night. Annoyed, Gubble yells at Nog that serving the human empire is a terrible idea. Holding a box, Nog confirms he's listening to what she's saying. Suddenly the box opens, and he says he understands her concern. He then explains it's a chance for goblins and adventurers to finally be friends. Besides, he claims this is their chance to get stronger. At that, Gubble grabs him, questioning his desire to get stronger. Furious, she says they owe nothing and are risking their lives for humans. Crying, she says he's changed and now only cares about getting strong. Without hesitation, she grabs his arm forcefully. Upset, he asks what the problem is, since this way he can protect the other goblins. In tears, she yells that their goal was to find out why humans hunt them. He shouts back that their goal is still the same. Heartbroken, she asks how the danger can be worth it if they don't even know why. As she leaves, she asks what will happen if he dies on the mission. With a sad look, she asks what she would do if something happened to him. A flashback shows that Gubble has been by his side the whole time. Without understanding the system, she always fought alongside him, no matter the situation, and she followed him everywhere, simply because she trusted him completely. Back in the present, she wipes her tears and says he won the argument. Turning to leave, she warns him that this will be their last adventure. After the mission, she says the only thing she wants is to go home. The scene changes as their ship finally arrives at the capital of the great empire. Impressed by the view, Nog says the place is on another level. In the corner of the ship, Gubble just watches them arrive in the city. Then, Goliath tells them to stay close, so they don't get lost in the crowd. He then yells that they could disappear and never be seen again. Laughing at the scene, Tyrros tells Goliath to stop scaring the two of them. He then replies it was just a joke as he walks away with Tyrros. With his body in flames, Tyrros dares him to mess with someone his own size. Taunting Goliath, Tyrros challenges him to a 1-minute fight later. Watching the argument, Laura comments on what a weird duo they make. Patting his back, Laura remarks that opposites make a good team. Agreeing with her friend, Arya lets out a big laugh along with Laura. Seeing their low spirits, Pip flies nearby, asking for a bit more excitement. Upon entering the guild hall, they find a crowd of other adventurers. Right after, Nog activates his ability to start analyzing everyone around him. Focusing on a sword, he realizes everyone there is rank C or higher. Continuing his analysis, he focuses on an A-rank hammer from one of the adventurers. Right after, he analyzes an A-rank tonfa from another powerful warrior. Passing through an archway, the group is led to the guild's main area. Suddenly, 3 members of the Sapphire Dragon Guild walk down the main hall. Surprised, 2 adventurers recognize them as the kingdom's triple S rank heroes. With his eyes shining, Nog is completely shocked to hear about their rank. Full of curiosity, he activates his ability to analyze the hero's stats. Trying to analyze the heroine, Nog's system simply denies him access. Confused, he asks Pip if his analysis ability is broken. Suddenly, the S-rank heroine shouts, demanding everyone's attention. The force of her shout throws the entire group of adventurers backward. She then warns them that the mission will be dangerous, and she won't tolerate any distractions. Looking at the crowd, she tells them to either stay focused or get out of her sight. After the warning, she prepares to finally explain the details of the great mission. It's revealed that a civilization of orcs is conquering villages and causing chaos. In an image, the orcs are shown attacking and burning one of the villages. She says the mission became A rank after the first group was eliminated. Next, Tyrros warns anyone who feels incapable to just leave. The heroine adds that it saves her the trouble of collecting their bodies later. With that, she hands it over to the strategist, threatening anyone who doesn't pay attention to him. A bit nervously, the man thanks the heroine for the introduction. Worried, Gubble tells Nog they've never gotten along with orcs. Remembering the rivalry, he recalls the history between orcs and goblins. In a flashback, orcs are seen mistreating a small, helpless goblin on the ground. Faced with the memory, he just clenches his fist tightly. With determination, he says it's not the time to be afraid because he's strong now. At that, his status window appears, showing he is level 23. From a distance, the S-rank heroine comments that she found the situation quite interesting. She then turns and walks away with her small floating creature. With a smile, she reveals she actually couldn't see a thing. Atop a cliff, the group finally gazes upon what appears to be the Orc Kingdom. Seeing the great city of Udamore, they are impressed by its sheer size. With a worried look, Nog wonders if they're really going to invade that place. A memory of humans attacking surfaces, and he quickly tries to push the thought away. Focusing his mind, he tells himself this attack is necessary. Then he remembers that orcs are brutal to everyone, even goblins. Coming up from behind, Tyrros asks Nog if he's a little nervous about this. Looking at the horizon, he says that war is never an easy thing. He then praises Nog, saying he's always been good at facing monsters. Sincerely, Tyrros says that the way he faces fear is very inspiring. Calling it their greatest mission, he says he brought a gift. As Nog opens the box, Tyrros praises him, calling him a great craftsman. Inside the box is a custom-made weapon, designed with his strengths in mind. He then reveals he got the measurements from Gubble and hopes the handle fits. Picking up the new weapon, Nog knows today's mission will be very dangerous. With a smile, Tyrros says he just wanted to give a useful gift to a friend. Moved, Nog remembers Grom saying he would find a way for everyone to live peacefully. In another memory, he claims that goblins and adventurers can indeed be friends. Suddenly, Nog hugs him, taking Tyrros completely by surprise. Without letting go of his friend, he accidentally drops his new weapon on the ground. With his face still down, he thanks Tyrros for absolutely everything. Smiling, Tyrros tells him not to thank him just yet. It's still too early. Ready for the invasion, Tyrros asks him to show him how to use the weapon. Down below, the orcs spot the fleet of airships approaching the city. Then the S-rank heroine finally gives the order to begin the invasion. Immediately after, the adventurers leap from the ships, starting the great attack. To protect them, a mage casts a slow fall spell on several warriors. With the spell, they land safely on the streets of the orc city. Seeing the invasion, an orc warrior yells that they are under attack. Wasting no time, Hale charges forward and defeats 2 guards with his swift strikes. On the front lines, Hale and Dorian formed the mission's main assault group. Stepping forward, he prepares to initiate his part of the plan. Making up the rescue team were Nog, Tyrros, and the imposing adventurer, Goliath. He then remarks that the orcs have over 1,000 captives for them to find. But as he looks at the city, he sees multiple explosions going off everywhere. It all looked like a massacre, as if they were searching for something specific. Suddenly, an explosion goes off right beside him, catching him by surprise. Not understanding a thing, he tries to process what just happened in front of him. Just then, Gubble appears at his side, also on high alert. In another part of the city, Dorian faces an orc samurai after a fight. Right after, a group of orcs leaps from the rooftops surrounding the adventurers. Seeing the new enemies, Dorian says that now they look like a real challenge. One of the orcs then reveals an object that starts to release smoke. Shocked, Dorian wonders if he was the one who managed to take down the large airship. Hale then prepares an attack, asking if there will be bonus points for their heads. Launching his attack, Hail aims directly at the enemy in his path. To defend himself, the orc samurai raises his giant weapon towards the blow. With tremendous force, he spins his body and slams the weapon into the ground. At that moment, his strike is about to collide with the adventurer's attack. Focusing his power into the weapon, he yells to obliterate the enemy's attack. Caught by surprise, Hale and Dorian are hit by the orc's powerful counterattack. With the impact, a gigantic explosion completely covers the entire battle area. After the smoke clears, Oniyama questions the adventurer's audacity in his land. After the attack, the bodies of the defeated orcs begin to slowly disappear. Emerging from the smoke, more orc warriors advance to continue the great battle. Just then, Kioni and Onikamaru arrive, saying that this war was always inevitable. Then, the four-armed orc named Onibaba reveals herself, ready for combat. Revealing the entire shogunate, Onibaba reinforces that the fight was completely inevitable. Kioni then declares that adventurers and monsters are sworn enemies forever. From the top of the airship, the heroine watches the explosions caused by the invasion. From there, she continues to monitor the situation, watching another attack detonate. Watching the fight, she notes that the orcs have the numerical advantage, as expected. With her foot on the edge, she prepares to enter the battle herself. Preparing a spell, she says she didn't expect them to be so strong individually. Saying that's why they're here, she drives her weapon into the ship. Taking a step into the void, she leaps from the airship toward the ground. Descending at high speed, she yells that she'll show them her power. Already in the air, she says it's time to go all out in the fight. With that, she activates her powerful meteor ability to attack the city. Seeing the projectile falling, the orcs in the streets look up, terrified. Trying to defend himself, one of the orcs blocks an attack with his sword. Right after, he looks to the sky, wondering what was happening. With a massive impact, a giant crystal erupts from the ground, blowing everything up. Meanwhile, another hero springs into action, cutting an enemy in half. Watching the fight, the group is completely shocked by the scene before them. Seeing an orc finish off an adventurer, they realize it's a massacre. Angrily, Tyrros says he'll slaughter every orc he finds, but Nog warns him they can't go because there are too many enemies there. Furious, he says he won't just stand by and wait for the worst to happen. With his back turned, he stares at the battle unfolding before him. He then yells that he won't just watch his comrades die like that. Trying to calm him, Nog reminds him that their duty is the rescue mission. He then shouts that he understands what it's like to see his people slaughtered. Saying they can still save many, he asks Tyrros to focus on the mission. Goliath then agrees, saying they'll die if they go there now. Laura then suggests that maybe the prisoners can help turn the tide. With his eyes closed, Edward seems to agree with what Laura just said. Refusing to accept the situation, Tyrros turns to face his teammates. Outraged, he shouts that they don't understand, letting the front line collapse. Worried, Nog calls out to Tyrros, seeing he's about to do something. Suddenly, an explosion erupts right in the middle of the street where they were. Without thinking, Tyrros runs toward the danger, leaving the rest of the group behind. Stunned, Nog can only watch as his comrade leaves for battle alone. Amid the smoke, the S-rank heroine appears right in front of the group, carrying a defeated orc. She asks if the group is still near the gate. She then remarks that they haven't made much progress since the mission started. Confused, Tyrros wonders what the difference is between him and the heroine. He then decides to distract the orcs to the west, giving the group less opposition. Looking at the heroine, he can't accept the huge power gap. Trying to stop him, the heroine tells him to wait, but he ignores her. She then questions him, asking if he did all that for her sake. Pausing for a moment, she simply replies that no, it wasn't for her. Activating a skill, she says she will now follow the original plan. Seeing the skill activate, Nog is completely shocked by what he's witnessing. Impressed, he asks if that was an acceleration skill and says he's going after her. Trying to stop him, Gubble says the heroine told them to stick to the mission. Turning to the group, he says it's just like he said before. In a flashback, he hides from an orc, saying that no one understands him. He then remembers the sight of his dead parents right in front of him. Terrified, he covers his mouth, reliving all the trauma of that terrible day. With a look full of fury, he says he's going after her no matter what. Without hesitating, he uses his skills to jump and go after the heroine. Stopping Nog from following, Goliath just tells him not to do it. He then says that seeing the dead adventurers must have triggered something in him. Goliath states that he recognizes that look, as he's only seen it a few times in the past. He remembers Tyrros using his flames in a moment of total fury, and the heroine provoking him only served to make the whole situation worse. In that state, Goliath says Tyrros is no better than the monsters he wants to kill, but in the end, Nog says he'll be fine, because that's Tyrros. Goliath says that, for now, they need to finish the rescue mission first. Explaining the situation, One of them says the orcs were in greater numbers. Another adventurer then advises that the heroine would focus her attack to the west. With this information, they decide to take the route on the east side of the city. Questioning the logic, Nog asks if there will really be less opposition that way. He then realizes that the enemies from the east are coming toward them. His perception skill alerts him, showing that he's in great danger. Suddenly, a huge explosion hits the street right in front of the group. The impact of the attack ends up destroying part of the path they were following. Hit dead on, one of the adventurers is thrown far away, badly injured. Seeing the body, Laura confirms to the group that he unfortunately didn't survive. Faced with the scene, Nog just watches his fallen comrade in complete silence. Next, an orc general appears, shouting for his troops to come to the west. Announced as Ryan, he warns that they are finally arriving for combat. Startled, Edward asks what that creature in front of them is. With a fixed gaze, Nog remembers that ogres and orcs have an alliance. Wondering about the odds, he doesn't understand how they could be there. The ogre then remarks that there's something strange about the two little ones. Then he says their scent is familiar, like something they've eaten before. Preparing for a fight, he yells that he's going to see what's under their masks. With furious eyes, the two ogres roar at the adventurers. He then launches a powerful light attack toward Nog and Gubble. Surprised, the two goblins just watch the attack coming their way. With the help of a bomb, the attack is deflected and causes an explosion. Celebrating, the ogre says he managed to hit them both with the attack. But emerging from the smoke, Edward appears, protecting the goblins with his shield. With a thumbs up, he praises Nog's action, saying it was a good defense. Without wasting time, Goliath shouts for everyone to get to a safe place. From a distance, the ogres watch the group flee, but they don't give up the chase. Running, the group hides in an alley to escape the ogre's pursuit. Behind a door, they prepare for the next stage of their plan. Seeing them run, the ogres wonder if they think they can escape. He then charges forward, saying he'll show them what happens. Barging in, he yells that no one escapes the ogre duo. Upon entering, he finds no one, completely confused by the situation. Just then, the ogre steps on a small creature on the floor. The creature then starts to spark, as if about to explode. Suddenly, the creature explodes, causing massive destruction in the area. Seeing the explosion, one of the orcs asks if that was some kind of magic. Coming out of the alley, Nog says something else must have caused the explosion. With a hand on his chin, he realizes the explosion was bigger than the prototype. Hit by the blast, the ogre falls to the ground, screaming that it burns. Confused, he wonders if the adventurers managed to make a bomb. From his hiding spot, Nog fires his weapon, aiming directly at the ogre on the ground. Using a hook, Nog lunges toward the ogre to catch him by surprise. Being grabbed, the ogre can't believe what just happened. With the enemy immobilized, the ogre yells that it was him all along. Nog then says it's not just him, to the ogre's surprise. Suddenly, the whole group appears, revealing it was all part of the plan. Taking advantage of the distraction, Goliath charges forward and cuts off the ogre's arm with his weapon. Arya then tells the enemy they were always there, just waiting. Another adventurer then seizes the opening to attack the enemy's legs. Next, Goliath smashes his hammer squarely into the ogre's head. After the attack, he falls to the ground, heavily wounded and nearly defeated. Seeing his fallen companion, the other ogre begins to cry over his loss. Filled with rage, he screams at the group, wanting revenge, but Laura blocks his advance, saying he won't do a thing. She then creates a protective barrier to defend the group from the enemy. Goliath then tells Gubble to prepare for the ogre's next attack. Taking their positions, Goliath and Gubble prepare for their next combined attack. Seeing their formation, the ogre can't understand what's happening. Charging forward, Goliath asks if he doesn't know who he's talking to. With a powerful blow, he strikes the ogre's head, causing an explosion. He then yells at the enemy, asking if he knows who he's talking to. The impact sends the ogre flying, crashing into a building. Defeated, he calls out for his brother, while the orcs call him pathetic. Holding his brother's body, he calls his name and begs him to wake up. He then reminds his brother of everything they've already lost to the adventurers. In a flashback, he remembers the lives they lost to greedy adventurers. Desperate, he screams that his brother can't die like this. With tears in his eyes, he says they were supposed to conquer the world together. Just then, Goliath appears and says they should have an honorable death. Focusing an attack, he aims at the ogre to end the battle once and for all. Seeing what's coming, the ogre can only scream in despair. Suddenly, a massive attack hits the building where the group was hiding. As the ceiling collapses, one of them yells that the attack came from above. Confused, Nog asks Pip where the fireballs are coming from. Now on the roof, they watch the shower of attacks raining down on the city. Focused on the situation, he just calls out to Pip, preparing to act. Right after, he activates his analysis skill to find the source. Using the skill, he manages to lock onto the origin of the attacks amidst the chaos. From a distance, the enemy asks in surprise if Nog can really see him from there. Finding the situation interesting, the monster lets out a sinister laugh. It's then revealed that the enemy is the Orc Emperor Onokuro, level 80. Alerted to the danger, he faces a massive attack hurtling toward him. Just then, he and Pip are completely swallowed by the enormous explosion from the powerful attack. In the midst of the attack, he tries to resist the force of the huge blast. Stones and debris then fly everywhere with the force of the attack. From the impact, he ends up on the ground, knocked completely unconscious by the explosion. An orc lifts his unconscious body from the ground, asking what happened. Then, the orcs begin to drag the fallen adventurers away. Worried, Pip asks if he's okay, and he says yes. Even with low health, he says his head is still hurting a lot. Suddenly, one of the orcs is hit by a surprise, fatal attack. The attack continues, hitting and taking down another nearby orc. Without wasting a moment, Goliath plants his feet firmly on the ground, preparing to fight. Shouting at the orcs, he charges at the enemies with his weapon. He then accuses them of being no better than goblins, attacking with fury. Shocked by the scene, Nog can only call out Goliath's name. After saving Nog, Goliath asks if he was the one who called him there. He then says it's better than nothing, since he's the only one there. Nog replies that he couldn't find the others because of the rain of fire. Goliath says they should go, as the area is full of orcs. Not knowing what to do, Nog asks where they should go now. Annoyed, Goliath says he's asking questions stupider than a goblin's. He then says they're going to the castle to slaughter the Orc Emperor. Goliath states that it'll be impossible to save the prisoners with the leader on the attack. Extending a hand, he asks if Nog wants to go straight for the boss. Nog then remembers that he and Goliath never got along very well. In a flashback, he sees Goliath holding a defenseless goblin in his hands. With a clenched fist, he says, "There's no luxury of choosing allies." Facing brutal enemies, he knows he needs all the help he can get. With a smile, Goliath says he needs all the help he can get. Clasping hands, the two agree to team up to take down that monster. Amid the chaos, several explosions continue to rock the city. Just then, the S-rank heroine asks what Tyrros is still doing there. She then reminds him that she sent him on the mission to rescue the prisoners. He tries to argue, saying that many adventurers are dying on the battlefield. Saying she doesn't need him, she easily defeats a monster that was attacking him. She says that being strong isn't about being on the front lines. With a gesture, she explains that power is meant to help others. She then reminds him that there are thousands of innocent prisoners to be saved. Next, she questions him about using his strength just to kill orcs. With a heavy conscience, he screams, questioning the use of his power. In a flashback, he wonders why he's been fighting all this time. He then questions his reason for becoming an adventurer. Remembering Nog's words, he recalls that they can save many people. With a serious look, he seems to have finally understood the whole situation. With determination, he turns around, ready to fulfill his true mission. Facing an explosion, Tyrros observes the chaos of the battle around him. Thinking, he says that if helping others is what separates the great adventurers from the rest, then he remembers Nog, wondering if he's been seeing everything wrong. Remembering the hug, he begins to rethink his attitude as a great adventurer. Seeing his friends walk away, he realizes he's not as great as he thought. Calling out to the heroine, he seems to have finally made an important decision. He then asks if she can clear a path for him to get through. Surrounded by orcs, she says he's right, that he shouldn't be there. Preparing an attack, he yells that he needs to get back to his friends. Pleased, she says she's glad he changed his mind about that. She then clears a path for him, telling him to go help the prisoners. With a warning, she says she'll kill him if he disappoints her again. Underground, the group hears the sound of the ceiling collapsing. Worried, Gubble says she warned them the mission would be too dangerous for them. She then gets up, preparing to face the dangers to come. As the sword comes crashing down, he's nearly hit by the deadly blow, but he just wonders what exactly happened. Just then, the enemy attacks, shattering the protective barrier with a single punch. Using her magic, Laura projects a defensive circle toward the attack. Seeing the sword stopped in its tracks, the enemy wonders if Laura was the one who stopped him. He then shouts that such weak magic could never truly stop him. Wielding swords, he and Edward engage in a direct and intense combat. Taking advantage of the distraction, Hugo leaps and lands on the massive opponent's back. Angered by the attack, he prepares to strike back with his other blade. As Arya charges forward, he crosses his swords to block her double attack. Turning around, Laura orders Gubble to go on ahead and free the prisoners. In a flashback, she remembers the day he saved both her and Arya. At that moment, she questioned if this was the future she truly wanted. She then recognizes Tyrros and calls out his name with tears in her eyes. Recalling his help, she reflects on how she was always crying and depending on others. Looking back, she saw Edward always running away, shouting that he couldn't fight. Back in the present, she says that Nog and Gubble showed her what it means to be an adventurer. Thanking them with a smile, she says that for once, things will be different. Taking her position with the group, she asks them to leave the main fight to them. For a moment, Gubble just watches her companion's determination in silence. Clenching her fist, she declares she'll be back as soon as she frees all the prisoners. Then she runs at high speed, dashing right past a group of guards. At that, Arya grabs Edward by his armor and threatens him in case he tries to run. Laughing at the threat, he replies that he gets it and isn't going anywhere. Drinking a potion, he states that he made his decision a long time ago. He then declares that he would much rather fight alongside his friends. A memory of his old adventuring party flashes through his mind as he speaks. Finishing his sentence, he says he won't run from a battle ever again. Annoyed, the enemy complains that more and more insects keep showing up to get in his way. He then warns that he will crush them all with his powerful sword technique. With a loud crash, the prison door is violently broken down by someone. Outside, Tyrros strikes the enemy, sending him flying into a wall. The scene changes to Gubble, who walks along and comments on the place's high security. Arriving at the prison, she says that Nog would be killed if he tried to get in that way. Suddenly, hands reach out from a cell, desperately calling for her help. Approaching the cell, she finds several prisoners begging to be freed. Asking them to step back, she tells them she'll get them all out of there safely. She then gets ready, saying she'll free everyone and then find Nog. At that moment, Gubble looks up and sees the entire ceiling starting to crack. Immediately after, a wall next to her explodes with immense force. Emerging from the smoke, a giant enemy with a sword appears before her. Looking at her, he says something with a very serious expression. He then says she smells different from the others in there. Without wasting a moment, he raises his sword and prepares his next attack. He then lunges forward and hits Gubble head-on with a powerful blow. Thrown with great force, Gubble crashes through the wall and lands on the other side. Stepping onto the rubble, he simply observes the result of his own attack. She then recovers and he compliments the block she managed to pull off. Announcing he's going to try something, he readies himself for a stronger attack. Saying it will be more ferocious, he jumps and concentrates power into his sword. Then he unleashes a single massive attack in her direction. Crossing the entire courtyard, the strike closes in on her at incredible speed. Gubble is then hit head-on and completely engulfed by the massive energy. Inside the blast, she screams desperately, calling out Nog's name. Immediately after, a gigantic explosion illuminates the entire city. Far away, two cloaked figures watch the destruction caused by the blast. They look at each other, wondering about the source of so much power. With wide eyes, the smaller figure seems to have recognized something. Amidst all the smoke, a single eye slowly opens. Focusing on the center of the blast, he observes the result of the powerful attack. Hidden, Nog comments that Gubble found herself a really tough opponent to fight. Suddenly, Tyrros leaps out and positions himself in front of her to take over. Telling her to leave it to him, Tyrros prepares for the imminent combat. Seeing the intervention, the enemy stares at the new warrior who has just appeared. He then wonders about the new adventurer who uses fire attacks. Asking about the others, Tyrros finds out that no one knows where Nog went. After hearing everything, he simply says he understands the group's situation. Announcing the plan, he says they will defeat the jailer and help everyone. Wielding his sword, he charges at high speed towards the large enemy. Surprised by the movement, Gubble comments that he's too fast. With a more serious look, the enemy prepares for a direct confrontation. Using his special technique, Tyrros manages to block his opponent's attack. As their weapons clash, the impact generates a massive explosion of energy. Using his fire attack, he hits the enemy and sends him flying. The force of the impact sends him crashing through the roof of a nearby building. Taking the full brunt of the attack, he is violently thrown back. He then lands on the ground, leaning on his sword and observing the result of his strike. Keeping his gaze focused, he waits for any sign of his opponent, but the enemy gets up and says the fight has just gotten interesting. Shouting through the smoke, he says he felt that attack. He adds that he felt the burning flame coming from the adventurer's heart. Seeing him standing, he wonders how the enemy survived such a blow. At that moment, Gubble shouts Tyrros' name, preparing to jump in and help, but a new opponent appears and asks if she's sure about that. Narrowly dodging, Gubble escapes a punch that cracks the entire ground. Then she praises her agility, saying she didn't know gnomes were like that. Right after, she asks directly if her opponent is even a gnome. Back to the other fight, Tyrros realizes Gubble is now busy. Remembering his promise, he questions if he can really keep it. Meanwhile, the prisoners look through the bars and see Tyrros approaching. Facing the enemy, he comments on the dangerous situation created by his power. In another memory, he sees himself facing a terrifying monster again. Clenching his fist, he affirms that this time, it can't be the same. He then prepares himself, adopting a new, much more serious combat stance. Charging with his sword, he shouts that he needs to be a much better adventurer. Observing his gaze, the enemy asks if he thinks he's some kind of hero. Saying he'll test his determination, the enemy charges forward for the great clash. Amidst the clash of powers, he yells that he'll fight with everything he's got. Switching to the other fight, the opponent hits Gubble with a very strong punch. Knocking Gubble away, she comments that it's funny when she defeats an adventurer. She then says that Gubble always gives her a pitiful look. Pretending to cry, she mocks her, saying she feels so bad that Gubble is hurt. With a mocking smile, she says she doesn't believe that for a second. Accusing Gubble, she says they invaded and killed many of her people. Apologizing, Gubble explains she's only there to save the prisoners. Irritated, she says Gubble is just trying to get pity with her excuses again. Then she states that murderous adventurers like Gubble don't deserve any of her empathy. She continues, saying they think they're heroes while they slaughter her people. Charging forward, she attacks while Gubble begs her not to fight. As she throws a punch, she asks what Gubble is doing there if she doesn't want to fight. As she gets hit, Gubble just thinks that her opponent has a good point. In a memory, she runs from an explosion and wonders about her mission. Crying, she questions if the danger is worth it without knowing why. In another moment, she sees several monsters and realizes they are just ingredients. Seeing a large goblin, she wonders if they and adventurers can be friends. Then she remembers Tyrros with a companion, keeping that possibility in mind. Back in the present, she thinks that she's not so sure about that anymore. As she's hit again, she reflects on whether this is the future she really wants. Then the opponent lands a powerful kick, sending Gubble flying back with force. But Gubble recovers and counters with a solid punch to the face. With a fixed gaze, she prepares to press the attack without hesitation. Unleashing a spinning kick, she hits Gubble with impressive force. Then she follows up with a series of strikes, hitting Gubble repeatedly. With a final kick, she sends Gubble crashing into a wall, creating a crater. Looking at her fist, she asks why Gubble let her guard down. Telling Gubble to fight properly, she says she doesn't need any pity. Getting up, Gubble says it's not about pity or anything like that. She then claims to understand her situation better than anyone. In a flashback, Gubble recalls the horrors the adventurers brought to her village. She remembers fighting against them, but not for her own reasons. Back in the present, she declares she will no longer fight for them. Pointing forward, she warns that this final battle is for her friend. Remembering Nog, she says she'll keep the promise she made. She then prepares to finish the mission for her friend's sake. Mocking her determination, the opponent calls it a weak resolve. Jumping back, she yells that her father always said gnomes are pathetic. At this, Gubble asks if she wasn't paying attention to what was said earlier. Then she apologizes and lunges at her opponent with everything she's got. In a swift move, she lands a devastating punch right in the enemy's face. Taking the hit, the opponent is completely stunned by the force of the attack. The impact throws her to the ground, creating a large crater. Right after, Gubble states that she doesn't belong to any of those adventurer races. She then kicks her opponent, listing humans, elves, gnomes, and even giants. Blocking the next punch, the opponent grinds her teeth from the force of the blow. Without stopping, Gubble spins around and prepares another powerful kick. Hit head-on, the opponent is sent flying through several buildings in a row. Falling defeated, she gets trapped in the wreckage of a completely destroyed wall. Looking at her own hand, Gubble realizes her strength doesn't fit into those categories. She then concludes that her power is closer to that of the legendary Oni. Asking if Gubble is one of them, the opponent shows her utter surprise. Falling from a great height, Gubble lands perfectly in front of her opponent. Getting ready again, she takes a stance to continue their direct confrontation. Leaping with agility, she unleashes a powerful kick toward Gubble. At this, Gubble just watches her adversary approach for the next strike. Facing the charge, she just stands still with a very serious look. Screaming that this is pathetic, the opponent becomes enraged and releases her power. Then she charges forward and lands a powerful kick right through her guard. Pushed back, Gubble tries to withstand the heavy impact of the blow. The force of the blow completely destroys the entire tower behind them. Sliding across the roof, Gubble hears her opponent scream that she's finally pissed her off. Launching herself upward, the opponent leaps onto the roof and continues the chase. Attacking again, she says that a warrior fights for what they believe in. She braces herself as the opponent explains that they give their lives for it. In a brief flashback, two warriors exchange blows in the middle of a battle. With an annoyed smile, she prepares to continue her series of accusations. Attacking Gubble, she yells that she fights alongside the conquering enemy. Then she asks what kind of friend would make all that bloodshed worthwhile. Remembering Nog, she wonders if it was all really worth it. With a quick move, she dodges the attack and prepares her counterattack. Landing a kick to the chin, she says she sometimes wonders that too. Surprised by the blow, the opponent is thrown into the air, defenseless. Answering the question, Gubble says she wonders the same thing. Seizing the opening, she lands a powerful punch on her mid-air opponent. Knocked downward, the opponent screams as she plummets toward the ground. The impact of the fall makes her crash through the roof and into the building. Falling from a great height, she continues to plummet toward the ground. Passing through several floors, she crashes through everything in her path. Hitting the ground, the impact of the fall generates a huge explosion of light. From the top of the building, Gubble just watches the hole left by the fall. Lying on the ground, her opponent is completely defeated after the long battle. From the rooftop, Gubble now watches the burning city from a distance. Cutting to another scene, Tyrros continues his fierce battle against the other great enemy. Meanwhile, the rest of the group is still facing the powerful four-armed warrior. In the prison, the hostages are still waiting for a rescue that hasn't arrived. Remembering Nog, she brings a hand to her face and whispers his name. Removing her mask, she cries as she sees all the destruction around her. Looking toward the horizon, she says she just wishes she could go home now. Apologizing repeatedly, one of the warriors seems terrified. In his first war, he says he needs to be brave like his father. Then he warns that this is what happens when they attack his home. At that moment, their two weapons clash with immense force. Charging forward, Tyrros trades fierce blows with the local chief. He then realizes he can't break through the chief's defense no matter how hard he attacks. Meanwhile, the chief just watches the fight with a look of superiority. Suddenly he turns, looking surprised by something that just happened. Looking to the side, Tyrros also notices a hole in the building's wall. Emerging from the smoke, Gubble appears, and Tyrros shouts her name in shock. He then says it's impossible for Kian to have lost to a mere gnome. Recalling the fight, he insists it would be impossible in a contest of strength. Arriving at the cell, she apologizes for letting them down, but she warns them that she's stronger and begins to bend the bars. Furious at this revelation, he screams, asking what she did to Kian. Enraged, he calls her a demon and swears she'll pay dearly, but Tyrros appears and blocks the blow, warning him that he won't touch her. Telling him to get out of the way, the chief becomes even more irritated by the interference. With his weapon, he shoves Tyrros back with immense force. Trying to resist the attack, Tyrros grits his teeth to keep from being thrown back. He then gathers energy and prepares a devastating attack against the two heroes. Facing the blow, Tyrros plants his feet firmly on the ground to defend himself. Then, a massive blast of energy is fired toward the two adventurers. Glaring with hatred, he says that now they and the prisoners will suffer. Suddenly, dark smoke appears out of nowhere, surprising everyone there. Gubble then watches the scene, wide-eyed, not understanding what's happening. Ignoring the smoke, he unleashes a bolt from the heavens to obliterate everything. Turning to leave, he realizes something strange has happened behind him. Calling him a bastard, Tyrros reappears unharmed in the middle of all the smoke. Amidst the smoke, he asks if his enemy doesn't remember the warning. He then declares that Gubble is with him, dissipating all the surrounding smoke. Shouting that he won't let anyone die, he wonders how he survived. Observing the warrior, he remembers that even rankers were turned to dust by one blow. Thinking about this, he tries to understand where all the affinity for fire comes from. He then wonders if all the power is coming directly from the sword. Watching from a distance, Gubble just calls out Tyrros' name as she observes the fight. With his back to her, he tells her to leave everything to him from now on. He then says he'll protect her, and that she should focus on getting everyone out. Laughing at his audacity, the enemy asks if he really wants to be a protector. Saying that's fine, he tells Tyrros to be everyone's shield. He then fires his obliteration attack, warning that he'll turn them all to dust. Desperate, Tyrros tries to absorb as much damage as he can with his sword. Holding back the attack, he tries with all his might to redirect the energy away. Using immense strength, he manages with great effort to deflect all the power. With his sword, he slices the attack in half and throws it against the building. In the prison, Gubble frees the prisoners, while worriedly calling out for Tyrros. Seeing the stalemate, he's impressed by the young adventurer's resilience. With a focused gaze, he prepares to attack with full force again. Advancing, he says the situation has now become much more irritating. With a punch, Tyrros is thrown back but holds his ground. He notices Tyrros can barely stand after 2 attacks and keeps attacking. He then says he'll blast him until there's nothing left of the hero. Without stopping, he fires one attack after another at the young warrior. Trying to block, Tyrros defends against a blow with his sword once more. But the enemy keeps firing, giving him no chance to retaliate. Doing his best, Tyrros defends the final attack with all his strength. Commenting, he says that in war, there's a weakness that costs you your life. Watching the scene, Gubble remembers that altruism can be fatal here. In a flashback, he says that he has failed to protect his friends before. Speaking to Tyrros, he mentions the fear of failing once more. He continues, saying it's because of this fear that Tyrros will die. He then warns that because of this, Tyrros will die this very day. Watching a massive explosion, Gubble sees the city is still being destroyed. Seeing the situation, she says she has to go help Tyrros no matter what. She reaches the prisoners and asks if they're okay. One of them responds. Realizing the situation, she says she can't leave everyone behind. Telling Tyrros to hang on, she runs to help the prisoners escape. Leaning on his sword, Tyrros promises he'll be back for her soon. In a flashback, a young Tyrros watches a horrific scene of total destruction. Suddenly, a mysterious man approaches him amidst all the chaos. Asking if he's okay, the man watches the scene with the boy. Crying, young Tyrros tries to say something, but he can't form any words. As he points, he starts to sob, and the man calmly interrupts him. Grabbing the sword, he tells the boy to come with him without hesitation. As they leave, he tells young Tyrros to keep his eyes on him. The man puts his hand on the boy's head. The boy replies, "Yes," and follows. Once outside, he praises the boy, saying he was very strong. With a serious gaze, Saphir just watches the young boy before him. Then, he picks up the sword lying on the village ground. Analyzing the blade, he carefully observes every detail of the weapon. Wiping the sword clean, he asks if it belonged to the boy's father. Introducing himself as Saphir, he tells the boy not to worry about formalities. Asking about the sacred artifact, he questions the boy about the phoenix. Focusing on the sword, the boy observes the weapon up close. Stuttering, he answers no and calls him by his name, correcting himself. Sheathing the weapon, he explains it's a beast that is reborn from the flames. Asking if he's angry, he says the boy wasn't strong. Sobbing, young Tyrros confirms that he's very frustrated and angry. Telling him to burn it into his memory, Saphir says not to forget these feelings. Handing him the sword, he says the weapon grows stronger with its wielder. He then says that from that moment on, they will become much stronger. Getting on his horse, Saphir warns that Tyrros has a long road ahead of him. Laughing at the situation, Tyrros says he doesn't need to remember the past. Surprised, the enemy questions how he's still standing after everything. With a focused gaze, Tyrros just stares at his opponent without saying a word. Shouting, he says he now understands why he became a great adventurer. In another memory, he says he wanted to save others from that fate. He goes on, saying he wanted to leave his old, weak self behind. Clenching his fists, he says he wants to become someone who can protect others. Engulfed in flames, he unleashes all his power at once. Holding his gaze, he prepares for the final confrontation with total determination. With a scream, he releases all the energy contained within him. From a distance, Gubble watches the transformation with wide eyes. The power is so great that one of the prisoners is freed. Questioning his attitude, the enemy asks if crying over failures will change anything. He then warns that Tyrros can't protect anyone with those flames. Without hesitation, he prepares another obliterating attack with full force. Taking a step forward, he readies himself for the final counterattack. With his sword, he slices the enemy's attack in two. Irritated, the enemy glares at him, seeing his powerful attack cut down. Landing on the ground, he thrusts his sword into the soil with immense force. He then remembers a friend talking about the choice to save one's friends. In a brief memory, Nog found himself in a situation of great danger. Now, he says he has learned to face even the impossible. Warning everyone, he says this choice means accepting one's own defeat. With his new resolve, he declares he will never give up on himself again. Then he declares that his path is only just beginning. Raising his sword, he shouts that it all begins with the enemy's defeat. With an explosion, Tyrros unleashes all his power at once. Charging forward, he prepares a devastating attack with his flaming sword. Blocking the strike, the enemy realizes he's much stronger now. With great effort, he catches Tyrros' sword with his teeth to defend himself. Then, the two warriors exchange a series of high-speed blows. He then unleashes an attack that slices the entire battlefield in half, but Tyrros manages to defend himself and continue the fight with his sword. Surprised, the enemy realizes he's much faster than before. Shouting, he says they'll see who the true protector of his people is. Charging in, he questions who will be the victor, Tyrros or himself. At that moment, the two exchange another powerful blow in the midst of battle. With a final attack, he tries to stop Tyrros' sword with his weapon. Straining against the attack, Tyrros struggles to overcome his opponent's strength. Laughing, the enemy says that he has pushed him to his absolute limit. Taking the hit, he screams in pain from the direct blow to his chest. With one last effort, Tyrros strikes him and manages to break his weapon. Then he fires a beam of energy that launches Tyrros into the sky. Falling back down, Tyrros is engulfed by a huge explosion on the ground. Falling to his knees, he's surrounded by a massive blast of energy. Questioning his own strength, he says he's still not strong enough. He then remembers his great friend and adventuring companion. With a final effort, he prepares to continue fighting bravely. Surprised, the enemy prepares for the next attack with a serious look. Saying it's impossible, he watches as Tyrros prepares to fight. Annoyed, he wonders if Tyrros still wants to continue the battle. With a final shout, he uses all the power he has left. Falling from the sky, he prepares a final attack with his flaming sword. Angrily, The enemy watches him approach at high speed from the sky. Warning that he'll blast him away, he readies himself for the final attack. But Tyrros dodges the blow and continues his charge with the sword. Surprised, he realizes Tyrros used the flames to maneuver in midair. Taking a firm step, he prepares for the next attack. He then says that Tyrros has certainly proven his great worth in battle. Shouting, he declares that Tyrros is worthy of receiving his full power. He then fires a devastating blast of energy towards the adventurer. In response, Tyrros manifests wings of fire and a great phoenix behind him. Taking a deep breath, he fully concentrates on what he's about to do. He then says that he needs even more power to win this fight. He remembers that he wants to protect his friends and be a great adventurer. Crying out to the phoenix, he asks it to give him every last drop of its power. Advancing, he says he will destroy anyone who gets in his way. Seeing this advance, the enemy is completely shocked by the new display of power. Dodging the attacks, he slices through the energy blast with his sword. Surprised, the enemy realizes he is dodging all of his attacks. Annoyed, he prepares to block the final attack with his bare hands. Questioning his resilience, the enemy asks why he doesn't just give up. With one last effort, he fires a devastating blast of energy at Tyrros. Enraged, he screams for Tyrros to just die once and for all, but Tyrros concentrates all his power into the tip of his sword. With a single thrust, he flies towards the enemy with everything he's got. Engulfed in flames, he prepares a final attack with the Phoenix's energy. With a quick motion, he fires 3 energy spheres at the enemy. Dodging the attacks, the enemy braces for Tyrros' final blow. Taking the hit, he screams in pain as he's struck head-on. With his sword, Tyrros slashes his opponent right through the middle of his chest. Screaming, Tyrros releases all his remaining energy in the final attack. With a furious roar, the enemy tries to resist the blow with all his might. Just then, a huge fire phoenix manifests and attacks the enemy. The collision of their 2 powers creates a massive explosion that destroys everything. From above, only the smoke and fire of the battle can be seen. Spinning through the air, the enemy's weapon flies far away after the strike. Then Tyrros plunges his sword into the ground, ending the long and difficult battle. Standing before his fallen enemy, he simply observes the outcome of the confrontation. Fallen, the enemy says he felt all of Tyrros' determination in that attack. Tyrros just stares back, his gaze serious and very tired. He says the warrior's path is to have an honorable death in battle. The enemy's body then begins to completely disintegrate on the ground. Screaming, he says he wasn't ready to die like this yet. In a memory, he wanted to have lived for his family and to protect them. He recalls that he only wanted to protect everyone in his beloved family. His body then vanishes completely, ending the fight for good. With the battle over, Tyrros collapses, exhausted and with no strength left. Before he hits the ground, someone catches him, breaking his fall. Arriving just in time, Gubble supports him. "I got you," she says. He then says she was late and asks if everyone else made it out. She says yes, telling him everyone escaped safely thanks to him. Hearing the news, he just says that he's very happy about that. Telling him not to worry, she says he can rest now. As the fight ends, Tyrros' sword falls to the ground, still glowing. Slowly, smoke begins to rise from the hot blade of the legendary weapon. Arriving at the scene, Gubble is startled by the sword and jumps back. She then remarks that the sword is so hot, you can't get near it. In her mind, she compares Tyrros' power to that of S-rank adventurers. She then remembers the art of the Reborn phoenix he used in the fight. Now the sword is stuck in the ground, emitting a dense, white smoke. Looking around, she wonders where all that absurd power came from. She then concludes he won't survive because of his severe burns. As he's being carried, he says they need to find Laura before it's too late. Elsewhere, the rest of the group continues to fight the other enemy. With the enemy on the ground, they celebrate their victory in the tough battle. Observing the body, Arya says that for some reason, the victory feels different. Looking at the enemy's body, she says something is very strange. But Laura retorts that they were destroying villages and are evil, but Arya questions how many of their people they had already killed as well. Then she says they need to make their own judgments about the situation. Surveying the area, the two fall silent for a brief moment. Sensing something strange, she suggests they find the others to decide. From a distance, one of the enemies mourns the death of his battle companion. Elsewhere, a girl asks why Zoloth hates goblins so much. With a cold stare, he replies that he simply hates all monsters. She then says that he seems to have a special problem with goblins. Without answering, he just looks up at the sky with a serious expression. In a flashback, he watches his village being attacked by goblins. Sneaking around, he tries to escape the destruction and chaos of the invasion. Hidden, he watches the scene with his eyes wide with pure terror. Seeing a woman, he watches her trying to flee from the enemies there. But the goblin leader attacks her with his hammer without mercy. With a single blow, he crushes the woman, giving her no chance. Back in the present, he says there's no real reason for it. He just concludes by saying that goblins are ugly, and that's all. Taking a firm step, he prepares for battle with his group. Before them, a young enemy prepares to defend his territory alone. Angry, he prepares to fight with all his courage and determination. Calling them murderers, he braces for the confrontation against the invaders. Seeing it's a child, Zoloth says it doesn't matter and attacks him. Asking what they did, the boy attacks to defend his people. Surprised, Nog says he thought the boy would give up after the first attack. Not understanding, he says maybe he's talking about the attack on Gate A. Shouting, the boy asks why they can't just get along. Watching the boy, Nog says he reminds him of someone important. He then remembers himself when he was younger and a dreamer. Losing patience, Zoloth says it's time to die and attacks him. Seeing the attack, Pip rushes to intervene and save the boy. Getting hit, the young boy is thrown far away with great force. On impact, he passes out instantly and falls to the ground unconscious. Apologizing, Nog stares at him for a moment before acting again. He then says, this is for his own good, and hits him. With a final blow, he knocks the boy far away to safety. Annoyed, Zoloth says he didn't know he'd attack a child. With his weapon covered in blood, he doesn't seem to care about the situation. Dragging the boy, Nog says he didn't attack the kid either. Under the rubble, the boy's body is hidden for his protection. Nog then says it's grotesque to leave a child's body exposed. Grabbing his weapon, Zoloth says he's a bit bloody. Looking at the body, Nog says he doesn't deserve to die like that. Running, he warns that he needs to stop the war before it's too late. Without hesitation, he drinks a potion to heal himself quickly. With his hand healed, he prepares to end all of this. Taking a few more steps, they continue to advance through the ruined city. Then Zoloth points, saying that's where the fireballs came from. Arriving at Onikuro Castle, they observe the imposing structure before them. Inside, a figure sitting on the throne says she has finally found them there. With a smile, she faces him and calls him the traitorous Goblin. Arriving at his destination, he remarks that this is the Orc King's place. The Orc King then asks if he's ready to start the fight. With a powerful blow, the king slams his giant sword against the ground. Immediately after, the large castle gates begin to open. Once inside, Nog picks up a rock and asks about the angle. Pip replies that it looks good, so Nog decides to try his luck. Activating a skill, he transfers his agility to the two small stones. Then, he throws the stones with a swift spinning motion. The stones fly through the air, ricocheting off each other and the pillar. With precision, one of them ends up hitting a hidden mechanism on the wall. Confused, the two guards wonder how they managed to do that. Just then, the first stone flies straight ahead and hits one guard in the face. Seconds later, the other stone hits the second guard squarely as well. With both guards on the ground, the Orc King watches from a distance. Pip then asks how Nog knew about the orcs, while he just laughs. Receiving a notification, Nog looks at his screen with a serious expression. The Orc King reacts with surprise, realizing he only used stones. Pointing to the side, Nog excitedly shouts for the Orc King to look. The Orc King then yells at him to be quiet, as they need to be discreet. Walking down the hallway, he goes to see what Nog was showing him. Getting closer, he comes across a small creature that has been summoned. Looking like a doll, the summoned creature has button eyes and seems harmless. Completely confused, he asks if that is some kind of goblin doll. Suddenly, a trap springs from the floor, clamping tightly around his ankle. With a violent tug, the trap suddenly yanks him into the air. Hanging upside down, he yells at Nog, who just laughs at the situation. Seeing him trapped, Nog tells him to wait, saying he'll let him down later. Trapped up there, he accuses Nog of wanting the orc's head. Then he threatens Nog, saying he's finished once he gets free. In a flashback, it becomes clear that Goliath's violence would only cause more problems. Focusing his energy, he prepares for what needs to be done. With firm steps, he walks down the corridor, determined to follow his plan. After defeating the guards, he continues to advance along the path ahead. Reaching the end, he runs towards a huge, imposing gate. Using all his strength, he pushes the gigantic doors, managing to open them. Inside, a figure comments that he has finally made it. Revealing their position, the voice finishes by calling the newcomer a goblin. Then, Onikuro asks how he can see what's under the mask. He says he recognizes the smell and finds it strange that the guards are still alive. Losing patience, the leader asks if Nog is trying to mock him. Nog begins to explain that he understands the difficult past between monsters and adventurers. He claims he has come here to find peace for all monsters. The leader repeats the word peace as if he can't believe what he heard. Then he asks if that's why Nog is wearing that mask. Rejecting the proposal, he says that the adventurers started the war in the past. In a flashback, he remembers how many villages were destroyed in the attacks. He recalls how the children lived peacefully before the war began. With a cry of rage, he says that they had peace there. Looking at the prisoners, he claims the invaders deserve to be treated like animals. Interrupting, Nog tries to say that not all adventurers are bad. The leader then explains that peace doesn't happen because of the people. With a determined look, Nog adds that it all depends on the leaders. He continues, saying that the leaders issue decrees, and the sheep follow blindly. At another time, a king gives the order to eradicate the threat immediately. Nog explains that this is exactly how the world has always worked. Then he says that leaders deceive the people with false stories. He states that these lies are repeated and spread over and over again. Looking at the leader, Nog says the same thing happens to his people. He concludes that monsters and adventurers will be enemies as long as one leader hates the other. All it takes is one hateful ruler to start the whole cycle over again. Clenching his fist, he wonders if this is all that's going to happen. He then grits his teeth, lamenting that they are trapped in this cycle of war. Questioning the hatred, he asks if they should fight just because of King's orders. With a shout, he refuses to just sit back and accept this situation. He begins to tell how for years he and his best friend just watched. Meanwhile, their village leaders told everyone how they should think, but he and Gubble chose to decide for themselves what they would do from then on. Pip listens as he explains that people tend to act without questioning things. Rejecting that idea, he says that he is standing right in front of him now. As a goblin, he asserts that they can change things if they act together. He promises to convince the adventurers to leave, asking only not to be followed. Then, the leader asks what would happen if his plan were to fail. Firmly, Nog replies that he'll bet everything, and that he can take his life. Hearing the bold proposal, the leader stares at him with a surprised look. Angrily, he smashes the arm of the throne, saying he doesn't understand the goblin. He says that Nog should hate the orcs and the adventurers too. Unable to understand, the leader asks why he would do such a thing. At that, he rises from his throne, pulling the broken armrest away. Shouting, he questions why Nog is willing to risk his life for his enemies. Taking off his mask, Nog replies that the answer is simple, because he is not an enemy. The leader is shocked to see a goblin wanting to break the cycle of hatred. Suddenly, a chain with a blade is thrown towards Onokuro. The weapon strikes the leader squarely, violently piercing his chest. Feeling the impact, he's thrown backward, spitting blood from his mouth. Seeing the scene, Kion is completely shocked by the surprise attack. Bursting through the wall, Goliath says he was worried he'd be late for the slaughter. Nog watches, unable to believe what just happened. Standing there, Goliath remarks that it seems he arrived just in time for the action. He yells that they will end the war for good by killing their leader. Shouting for Goliath to stop, he insists they can resolve the situation peacefully. Onokuro then asks if that's why Nog left the other orcs alive. Goliath scoffs, saying it's good he finished them off, as it's already too late. Filled with fury, the Oni leader glares at Goliath, ready for combat. Realizing he doesn't want peace, Onokuro also prepares for the confrontation. At that, Goliath yells that the adventurers were the first to attack, not the orcs. He says to think of the humans who would be alive if monsters didn't exist. With a smile, Nog faces him, preparing to give his answer, but Nog asks how many monsters would be alive if they weren't hunted by adventurers. Lying on the ground, Onokuro turns his head, surprised by what he heard. His expression shows complete astonishment, as he didn't expect that defense from him. Goliath scoffs, asking why he cares about monsters now. He yells that for every monster killed, 10 of his allies were slaughtered. In a memory, a female warrior asks him why he suddenly feels sick. Filled with hatred, Onokuro reveals that Goliath even killed a child on his way there. Shocked, Nog tries to talk to Goliath, who turns to explain himself. Saying he's heard enough, the leader accuses him of preaching an impossible peace. He then adds that Nog still contributes to the very cycle of violence he condemns. Despite everything, he says he doesn't feel any anger towards them for their actions. He then states that each of them is just living their own story. Using his staff, he fires a powerful attack towards the two intruders. Hit squarely by the blow, Goliath is thrown back violently. At that moment, Pip and his clones also prepare to spring into action. The explosion throws them both far back, landing in the main hall. Nog shouts for Pip, who replies that he's already on it. Activating an ability, Nog creates several copies of himself to confuse the enemy. Dismissing the illusions, he calls the tactic completely pathetic and useless. He then uses an attack that destroys all the copies at once. The impact completely destroys a large part of the castle. Turning his back, he slowly walks away from the midst of all the destruction. With a laugh, Nog appears holding a bomb, surprising the Emperor. Not understanding, the Oni leader is paralyzed by the sudden turn of events. As the bomb explodes, Nog says he doesn't want to fight because the Emperor is too dangerous. Goliath confronts him, saying he ruined their chance to negotiate. With a disapproving look, Nog asks why he's even there. He tells Nog to get out of the way, as he has no time for his indecisiveness. Goliath then yells at Nog to decide whether he's an adventurer or not. Angrily, the leader says Nog thinks he's too important for this situation. He scoffs, saying heroes look nothing like the two of them. The leader shouts that this is the simple, sad reality of the world. Moving forward, he prepares to attack with all his power as Emperor. As Emperor of Udamore, He sentences the two intruders to death right there. With his lantern and dagger, Nog takes a stance to finally face the leader. He threatens Nog, saying he will make his land suffer just like his own. After stomping his foot, he yells for Nog to show up and fight already. Behind the door, he finds the doll and says he will crush its dreams. The small cloth doll is revealed, activating the next part of the plan. Seeing the trap, the Emperor reacts with surprise before looking up. Just then, a giant basket of rocks plummets towards him from above. Unfazed, he prepares an attack to destroy the falling rocks. He fires a blast upwards, saying that it won't stop him. To his surprise, he sees that the rocks were not destroyed by his attack. Not understanding why they're so durable, he watches the rocks continue to fall. Nog's ability makes the rocks more resistant, and they hit him. Trying to defend himself, he uses his arm to block the shower of rocks. Seeing an opening, Nog runs and begs the Emperor to listen to him. With a swift move, he lunges toward the Emperor to attack. Saying that a warrior doesn't beg, he launches a direct attack at Nog. He claims Nog will die with honor as the blow strikes him. Seeing the scene, Goliath screams Nog's name, completely shocked by it all. With a powerful attack, the Emperor unleashes his energy blast directly at Nog. Hit head-on, he is completely engulfed by the attack's energy explosion. Feeling nothing, he wonders if he just died in that attack. Suddenly, his eyes widen, showing surprise at what he sees. Flashing back to the past, he appears as a fallen child, watching other goblins walk away. Alone, he observes the large village built around a giant mushroom. He wonders if he's back in Tyrros, thinking it should be impossible. Walking through the village, he sees several goblins working and laughing together. Searching for his friend, he shouts Pip's name, but there's no answer. Confused, he doesn't understand what's happening and realizes Pip is gone. Then, a voice calls out to him, saying he's always daydreaming. Other goblins approach, greeting Nog and calling him the inventor. He asks Gubble why they returned to Tyrros and where the orcs are. Not understanding, she asks what he's talking about. Looking confused, she tells him to stop being weird and invites him to come with her. Gubble says the elder sent them to leave offerings for the guardian of the forest. There he sees a creature eating the offerings, remarking that this is the peace he dreamed of. With tears in his eyes, he smiles, moved by the scene before him. As the creature calls for more food, the goblins approach with the offerings. He watches a world where adventurers don't hunt them, the kind of life he always wanted. But suddenly, he falls on a broken clock, feeling something strange. He reflects on what it would be like to have a simple life like that in the forest. Celebrating a successful trap, he says everything is perfect. He laughs with a friend, happy with the outcome of the hunt. Later, he's seen gathering some mushrooms he found in the woods. Gubble announces she's going to look for mushrooms, and he asks her to bring back some fruit. Peeking through the bushes, he scans the area to see if he can find anything. Then, he looks to the side and sees something that catches his attention. Suddenly, he comes face to face with a mysterious hooded figure in the forest. Greeting the figure, he watches it turn and asks what he sees. Looking at the lake, he simply replies that he sees the water. The figure then asks him to look closer at the lake. Looking again, the hooded being asks Nog what he's feeling. Observing the landscape, Nog replies that the place seems very peaceful. The figure questions him, asking how long he thinks this peace will last. Surprised, Nog says he doesn't know, but he hopes it lasts forever. Repeating the word forever, the mysterious figure lets out a disdainful sigh. Then, he says that Nog is a very optimistic goblin, sounding surprised. With his face revealed, Nog recognizes him as the great goblin, Grom. Recalling his fame, Nog remembers he is a wanted hero. Next, Grom asks if Nog knows what he sees in that place. Looking at the sky, he says that what he sees there is acceptance. With a sad look, he says their people cultivate their organs to sell. Even with a peace treaty, he questions how they could ever be forgiven. He remembers all the goblins wounded and fallen because of the attacks. Then, Grom asks if there isn't a part of Nog that wants revenge. Looking at the lake, he reveals bodies floating in the red water. Startled by the sight, Nog drops his basket of mushrooms on the ground. He shouts, asking what this is and why Grom is showing it to him. With a serious look, Grom says they fill their graves, and we fill theirs. The scene ends showing the bodies of dead goblins floating in the lake. He says they slaughter families and destroy villages, and goblins are no different. Even if one side decided to stop, Grom explains that the cycle would continue anyway. Seeing a young girl drowning, he asks if Nog thinks everyone could just forget. As long as adventurers exist, he states, monsters will never have true peace. Suddenly, the figure of Tyrros appears, and warns that he needs to understand. He says that to achieve peace, they must completely destroy the adventurers. With his body trembling, Nog tells Grom that forgiveness is the way. Crying, he states he'd like to try the path of forgiveness first. Hearing his answer, Grom watches the illusion of the bloody lake fade away. He then reflects on Nog's decision to forgive after everything. As Nog cries, Pip's system initiates an illusion override. With the system rebooting, An energy begins to envelop Nog's body. Back in reality, Pip warns that they are both about to die. Fallen and wounded, Nog wonders why he said they would both die. He turns his head to the side, trying to understand what's happening. Then, he sees that Goliath blocked the Emperor's attack to protect him. All battered, Goliath asks Nog if he enjoyed his nap. Shocked, he realizes Goliath stood in front to protect him from the attack. Trying to get up, he says he needs to stand, but his body aches. Walking through the wreckage, the Emperor advances toward them without a second's hesitation. On the ground, he reaches out his hand and desperately screams Goliath's name. Then Pip warns him that his mana has been drained and suggests he use his potions. Attacking Goliath, the Emperor comments that he managed to break his powerful mirage. Questioning Nog, the Emperor asks if the peaceful dream he gave him wasn't enough. Without waiting for an answer, he says that obviously, that dream wasn't enough for him. He continues, saying it seems he and Nog see things differently in life. Leaping toward Nog, he says they both see different paths to peace. Raising his staff, he fires a blast of energy at the two of them. Then, he yells that Nog can watch as he exterminates the humans first. Right after, he threatens to crush the pathetic race Nog belongs to. Finishing his threat, he says he'll also destroy his fantasy about peace. Meanwhile, Goliath remains standing, resisting the Emperor's direct attack. Quickly, Pip activates a protective barrier to defend his companion, Nog. With a powerful step, Goliath positions himself for the battle to come. Activating his acceleration, Nog charges forward with a giant hammer in his hands. He then leaps over the Emperor, ready to deliver a powerful strike. Spinning in the air, he swings the hammer with all his remaining energy. Just before impact, the two stare each other down for a brief, tense moment. Hitting the Emperor's face, the blow causes a large, visible impact. From the force of the blow, Nog is thrown far away, crashing against the wall. The Emperor then warns that he used his last bit of mana on a weak strike. Recovering, Nog states that they have nothing left to talk about then. So the Emperor agrees and readies his staff for another attack. Goliath realizes that Nog is completely out of mana and can't keep fighting. Recalling the situation, he understands Nog can no longer use his abilities. Without wasting time, the Emperor fires another blast of energy at him. Pip creates a shield, and Goliath questions how he's going to win the fight. Firing the energy ball, the Emperor continues his relentless attack against them. Suddenly, he sees Nog fly past him and doesn't understand a thing. Then, he remembers the bomb Nog was holding earlier in the hall. Right after, he recalls the trap with the large basket of rocks. Understanding the situation, he realizes it wasn't the human who created all of that. With no time to lose, Nog throws two spiked bombs at him. The bombs hit his lantern, making the Emperor realize it was the Goblin. Then, he sees smoke bombs landing right at his feet. Revealing his plan, Nog uses his Goblin smoke bomb ability. With the explosion, the entire hall is covered in a very dense smoke. Thinking it's just a distraction, he attacks into the middle of it with his staff, but he stops for a moment, sensing that something is very wrong. He smells gunpowder and sees a fuse burning quickly. A gigantic explosion goes off right behind him, destroying part of the Great Hall. Amidst the flames, Nog stands still, seeming to wish for something in that moment. He wishes for everyone to stop looking at him with contempt once and for all. Remembering the past, he recalls them saying that only power mattered to win. He also remembers someone yelling that peace was completely impossible. Meanwhile, Goliath watches him with a serious and determined look. Furious, he yells that he'll prove everyone wrong, starting with Onokuro. Seeing the provocation, Onokuro asks if he really wants to start a fight there. Leaping onto a pillar, he warns that he'll regret everything. Not understanding the strategy, Onokuro grinds his teeth in anger at the situation. Confused, he wonders where all those contraptions came from and what they are. Then, Nog starts to ask him if he has ever done something. He asks if the Emperor has ever jumped on a sweet cloud mushroom before. Not understanding the question, Onokuro says no, completely confused by the situation. With a challenging look, Nog warns that he'll soon understand why. Suddenly, he's trapped by the contraptions and uses an ability called Haunted Call. At the same time, Nog also gets caught by one of his own inventions. Using the elastic platform, he is launched high into the air with great speed. Trapped by the contraption, he is thrown from one side of the hall to the other. Jumping between platforms, he gains more and more momentum for his attack. Pip fires several energy beams ricocheting throughout the Great Hall. Pulling out an item, he prepares to accelerate using his slime shield. With a powerful attack, Onokuro unleashes his supernova, destroying Nog's shield. Pip warns that the shield is about to break from the force of the attack. Remembering his creation, Nog knows the shields regenerate, but not from this much damage. Using the shield, he jumps up, trying to think of a new plan. He remembers that the supernova only lasts for a brief moment in one spot. Escaping its range, he uses the momentum to launch himself upward. Falling toward the Emperor, he finds an opening to attack directly. The impact of his attack causes massive destruction on the hall's floor. Unable to retaliate, the Emperor laments his ability's cooldown time. Then, Nog prepares to attack, even though he can't use his special abilities. Even without abilities, he charges forward with everything he has for the final decisive attack. He decides to endure the blow, saying that a goblin will never be strong. At that moment, a passive ability of the hammer activates, surprising the Emperor. Unleashing its power, the hammer strikes the Emperor with tremendous force. With the impact, he is hit head-on by Nog's devastating blow. Thrown backward, the Emperor wonders how that could have happened. Spitting blood, he says a mere goblin shouldn't be this strong. Looking at the weapon, he questions if all that power comes from that hammer. Defeated, he wonders how he could have lost to a goblin again. With his defeat, the Emperor finally falls motionless amidst the wreckage. Approaching, Nog extends a hand to his fallen enemy on the ground. Exhausted, he states that they don't need to keep fighting like this anymore. Even wounded, the Emperor asks why he doesn't just give up for good. Grabbing the Emperor's hand, he stares at him with a very serious look. Seeing his attitude, the Emperor begins to talk about the peace he seeks. Yelling that peace is impossible, the Emperor is stabbed by Nog. With the blow, the dagger goes completely through the powerful enemy's chest. Watching the blood splatter, he observes the final result of his attack. Immediately after, system notifications announce the defeat and his new levels. With the victory, the system announces that an evolution path has been unlocked. Kneeling, he asks Goliath why he stepped in to save him. Not understanding the question, Goliath says he was about to break his neck. He continues, saying he saved his life and Nog should be thanking him for it. With his back turned, Goliath just walks away from them without another word. Tired, he sits on the ground and says he doesn't want to be an adventurer anymore. Crying, he laments, saying he thought he could make a difference here. Goliath admits that maybe he bit off more than he could chew. Discouraged, he just says he feels like going back home. Looking at the burning village, he says he can't take this life anymore. In a memory, he hugs Hugo, showing his friendship with a human. He remembers questioning if this was the way to seek peace. Trying to cheer him up, Pip reminds him that he didn't actually kill anyone in the invasion. With a nudge, Pip says he was just trying to help everyone. With a smile, Pip finishes by saying, Nog isn't a bad guy. Thankful for the support, he hugs Pip with a smile on his face. Pip laughs and remembers the system screen that appeared after the battle. Seeing the notification, he realizes he gained experience for helping in the fight. Still confused, he wonders what exactly this evolution thing means. Pip apologizes, saying he'll have to look it up in his database. Surprised about the database, Nog listens to the explanation about monster evolutions. Reflecting on it, he understands why Grom was so different from the others, so he decides to touch the screen to see what the system can show him. The system reveals 3 paths, highlighting the Hobgoblin evolution first. Analyzing the option, he thinks it seems ideal for a true warrior. At that, he remembers strong goblins like Zoloth, or the legendary Grom. He thinks of Gubble, who is also strong, but maybe that's not his path. A bit sheepishly, he decides to see the other available options. The second option is the Fey Goblin, a rare evolution linked to magic. Thoughtfully, he says he's never seen one, but remembers that the environment has an influence. Analyzing the last option, he reads about the super rare Onar Goblin. Seeing the benefits, he thinks this is the best option for his style, but he's a little confused about what the transformation ability does. Even without being sure, he says he needs to trust his instincts now. With a click, he confirms his evolution choice and starts the process. Suddenly, he starts to feel an intense pain all over his body. An energy begins to pulse in his arm, starting the painful transformation. His body covered in lightning, he screams in pain from the process. The bones in his hand begin to break and completely reshape themselves. Afterward, his entire skeleton undergoes the same painful structural transformation. Feeling the energy of the transformation, he continues the process, enduring the pain. With a final scream, he releases all the accumulated energy from the evolution. Then, the system announces that the evolution process is finally complete. He complains to Pip, saying he didn't warn him it would hurt so much. Feeling stronger, he notices that his hands look a little strange now. Taking a step, he emerges with his new appearance after the complete evolution. Goliath approaches and asks Nog if he's fully healed yet. With a smile, Goliath explains that the orcs surrendered after the Emperor's defeat. He comments that many chose to take their own lives in a strange ritual. As Kian is taken away, she asks the others not to resist capture. Worried, Nog asks Goliath how everyone else is doing right now. Goliath replies that he found Gubble and that everyone is fine and completely safe. Explaining the situation, he says that Tyrros almost died, but Gubble saved him. Hearing the news, Nog expresses his relief that everyone is safe. Then Goliath extends his hand and calls for him to get up and follow. Telling him not to be sad, he says that the two of them are heroes now. Nog takes his hand and states that they've finally ended the war. Then he thanks him, saying Goliath saved him from certain death. But he also remembers when he saved Goliath's life before. Then, the memory of Gubble appears, bringing back the events of the battle. With a pat, Goliath says they're even, and calls him Goblin. With a shocked expression, Nog doesn't understand what Goliath just said. Quickly, Pip shouts for him to watch out for the approaching attack. With a powerful strike, Goliath says he knew the truth from the beginning. In a flashback, he comments that something seemed wrong when he met Nog's group. His suspicion leads him to remember how he always kept an eye on them. He then mentions Nog's disgusted look when asked about the monsters. Barely dodging, Nog manages to escape the attack that hits the ground hard. Back in the present, Goliath regrets not trusting his instincts sooner. Then he remembers the day the mask fell, revealing the truth. At that moment, he finally understood Nog's true identity in the forest. Seeing the two of them together, he realized he wasn't crazy, and his suspicions were real. With a furious look, he says that Nog and Gubble are the targets. Laughing uncontrollably, he screams that they were monsters all along. Years ago, he swore to destroy all monsters after a personal tragedy. Explaining his reason, he says he just wanted to see their strength up close. He reveals he wanted to confirm if Nog was the one who defeated the Forest Guardian. With a smile, he says the stage is perfectly set for his plans. With his sword in flames, he prepares to attack Nog with everything he's got. He explains that if he kills him there, he'll get the credit for the victory. Angrily, Nog asks what he did to his friend Gubble. With disdain, Goliath replies that he hasn't done anything yet, and she's dessert. Facing Goliath, the two stare each other down, ready for the final confrontation. Without hesitation, Goliath charges with his sword to attack Nog mercilessly. In an instant, Nog thinks that maybe they could have understood each other better. As he's pushed back, he wonders if he should try to convince him to stop. Grabbing his neck, Goliath squeezes hard, ready for the final blow. With a determined look, he realizes he can't let this happen now. Pip activates an ability, knowing they'll both be in trouble if they're discovered. With a wicked smile, Goliath realizes Gubble would be in danger too. Determined, Nog prepares to fight with all his might to win. With a powerful attack, Nog hits Goliath square in the face. As he's thrown back, Goliath says he can finally feel something coming from him. With a shout, he reveals that he can feel Nog's bloodlust. Using a chain, he traps him and asks if he wanted this too. From the force of the pull, Nog spits up blood, feeling the impact of the blow. Swinging the chain violently, he hurls Nog with all his might across the great hall. He then throws him into the air, saying this will be the final showdown. As he's thrown, he smashes through several floors of the castle from the force of the impact. After falling, he crashes into a bookshelf, feeling the pain. Angrily, he wonders if his evolution should have made him faster. With a determined look, he screams for his power to show itself. Smashing through the wall, Goliath appears and calls him a goblin, still standing. Looking up, Nog tells him that he's alive and just getting started. Then, Nog faces him and asks what his kind took from him. In a flashback, he remembers his village, his family, and says they took everything. He remembers swearing to never let them take anything from him again, but he says that taking things from others is what goblins do. With a hateful scream, he swears he will kill Nog and all goblins. Falling backward, Nog barely manages to dodge Goliath's attack. Blocking the blow, Goliath realizes the hammer strikes the same spot twice. With a quick move, Nog manages to dodge to the side of the attack. Goliath realizes the second blow was 10 times stronger than the first. Jumping back, Nog tries to get away, but Goliath knows his secrets. Seeing that the surprise attack failed, Nog realizes he needs to create some distance. Throwing his weapon, Goliath attacks him with the chain to close the distance. As he's hit, he complains that Goliath won't give him a second to breathe. With a leap, Goliath charges forward and lands a punch right in Nog's face. Grabbing his neck, he lifts him into the air with just one hand. Then he throws Nog with all his strength against the bookshelves. Seeing the situation, Pip creates a shield to try and protect his companion. To create a distraction, he summons one of his strange, stretchy inventions. Annoyed by the tactic, Goliath just watches the object coming toward him. Then, the stretchy object hits him, sending him flying back from the impact. The recoil sends him skidding back across the floor too. Saying he needs a moment, he tries to get away from Goliath to think. But Goliath leaps into the air, laughing, ready to end the fight from above. Slamming his sword on the ground, he says he's killed thousands of goblins before. Admitting his surprise, he says he's never met a goblin like Nog before. In a memory, Nog appears surrounded by all his inventions and creations. Then, Goliath swings his sword, destroying the summoned creatures in a single blow. Mercilessly, he continues to cut down every target that appears in his path. Then he faces Nog, wondering what secrets he might end up revealing there. Threatening to torture Gubble, he says he'll rip every piece of information he needs from her. He says he'll torture Gubble to make Nog spill all his secrets. With a confident smile, he says Nog will reveal the source of his power. Suddenly, one of Nog's summons strikes him, slicing his sword in half. Surprised, he can't understand what just happened to his weapon. Amidst bolts of lightning, Nog prepares to counterattack his enemy. An energy envelops his fist, concentrating all his power into a single point. With a leap, he charges toward Goliath at full speed. Seeing the threat to his friend, he says that now they have a problem. Clenching his fist, he gets ready to hit Goliath with everything he's got. With a furious shout, he lands a devastating punch on Goliath. The impact of the blow shatters Goliath's armor and sends him flying back. The force of the punch cracks the ground, and he's thrown far away. Spitting blood, he wonders since when Nog got so strong. On the ground, Goliath sees Nog approaching him with a purple energy in his hands. With a stomp, he readies himself for the final blow against the downed Goliath. Moving forward, he prepares to deliver the final blow to his enemy. Seeing his hands glow, he asks Pip to explain about the Onare goblins. Pip readily agrees, saying he'll find all the information he can. Meanwhile, Goliath analyzes Nog's stats and sees they are just as he thought. With his stats revealed, he confirms that Nog isn't like other goblins. Taunting him, Goliath calls him a monster and tells him to just attack already. With a leap, Nog lunges forward, saying he wants to protect his friend Pip. Leaping over him, he tells Nog to show him what he can really do in a fight. Using his sword, Goliath tries to cut Nog, who slides to dodge. With his hands, he manages to catch the sword's blade to defend himself. Just then, Goliath realizes the target of his attack isn't his chest. He understands that Nog is trying to reset the critical point to a new location. Deciding to defend, he prepares to block the attack with his hand. With a surprise attack, Nog hits him on the side of the face with his lantern. After getting hit, he sees Nog's sword flying toward him. Realizing the strategy, he understands the target isn't his critical point. Goliath says he can defend himself, but it leaves the rest of his body open. With an attack, Nog warns that he doesn't need critical hits to win. Spinning, he lands several quick blows on Goliath with his lantern. With a final strike, he finishes the sequence with a clean hit on his opponent. Tired, Goliath yells, "That's enough," and prepares for his final attack. He says he'll put all his strength into the attack, since he can't defend. With a sword strike, he tries to hit Nog, who blocks it with his weapon. Facing the weapon, Nog braces for the impact of his enemy's blow. Thrown backward, he uses his body to shield himself from the explosion. With his arm, he catches the blade, getting cut in the process to defend himself. Seeing his opening, Goliath lunges with the sword, piercing through his arm, his eyes wide. He's shocked by what just happened. Not understanding, he realizes that Nog sacrificed his own arm to defend himself. With the sword stuck, Nog warns that he's now open for a counterattack. Seeing the opening, he prepares a quick attack to seize the opportunity. With a swing of his lantern, he hits Goliath's chin with full force. Seizing the moment, he lands a powerful knee in the enemy's stomach. Then, he finishes with a powerful kick that sends him flying into the air. Spitting blood, Goliath wonders how that was possible after everything. Hit squarely, he remembers that Nog just lost his arm. From the impact, Goliath falls to the ground, completely defeated by the last attack. Even injured, he doesn't understand how Nog is still fighting like that. Suddenly, he sees something that leaves him completely shocked and speechless. Nog's severed arm begins to regenerate with a purple energy. Finding it interesting, Nog watches his arm reconstruct itself before his very eyes. Pip explains that Onare goblins don't have real arms or legs. Shocked, Goliath realizes he's fighting an unknown Onare goblin. Completely confused, he says he's never heard of such a creature before. Feeling his body at its limit, Nog summons a sword for the final attack. Seeing the sword, he asks if Nog is going to kill him with his friend's weapon. Filled with hatred, he says that monsters are all the same and the world would be better off without them. Telling him to just get it over with, he warns that Nog and Gubble are finished if he survives. Holding the lantern, Nog readies himself for the final blow against his enemy. With a final breath, he prepares for what's to come in the fight. Yelling, he asks what Nog is waiting for and if he doesn't understand. In a flashback, Grom says that only one of them will leave that place alive. His back turned, he walks away, leaving Nog with his final words of warning. Goliath yells that the goblins took everything from him and he deserves his revenge. With tears in his eyes, Nog hears him swear that he will dedicate his life to hunting him down. Holding the dagger, he prepares to make his final decision in the battle. His back turned, Nog walks away, leaving Goliath behind, still down on the ground. With one strike, he cuts the chain that had previously bound him in combat. With a determined smile, he decides what he will do next in the fight. Suddenly, a new figure appears on the scene, shouting both of their names. Arriving excitedly, Tyrros congratulates them both, saying they need to celebrate the victory. He then mentions that Goliath told him where they would be waiting. Suddenly, his expression changes completely, when he sees the scene before him. On the ground, Goliath's lifeless body lies in a puddle. Covered in blood, he just stands there staring at the body on the ground. Shaking the body, he says this isn't funny and calls out for Goliath. Tears in his eyes, he asks if Goliath remembers the promise they made together. He shouts that they were supposed to become the world's greatest adventurers. With a cry of pain, he hugs his friend's lifeless body. Desperate, he begs him not to leave, saying he can't lose him. Meanwhile, Nog trembles, shocked by the scene unfolding before him. In a conversation, Gubble asks if the orc's magic killed him, but Tyrros doubts it. Looking at his hand, he says there are no injuries and that nothing makes sense. With tears in his eyes, he turns and asks Nog where he was the whole time. Startled, Nog swallows hard, not knowing how to answer him. In a flashback, he remembers how he barely survived the fight against Onekuro. He recalls thinking it was all over, but Goliath saved him in the end. He explains that he was in the throne room, tending to his own wounds. Apologizing, he says he's sorry he wasn't there to save him in time. Hearing the explanation, Sephir just watches him with a serious, suspicious gaze. Crying, he says that Goliath died as the hero who ended the war. Looking at the prisoners, he wonders what he could have done differently. Sephir replies that there was nothing, and that he's lucky to be alive. With a hug, Gubble tries to comfort Nog, who is still shaken by everything. Sephir says Goliath will be remembered for defeating the Orc Emperor. In a flashback, he remembers that hundreds of adventurers died that day. With tears in his eyes, Nog mourns the loss of his friend in the battle. Sephir tells him to remember those who sacrificed themselves for their future. A woman says that tonight they will celebrate their victory and the heroes. With everyone gathered, they celebrate the victory and honor those who are gone. On a lake, a leaf floats, marking the beginning of a farewell ceremony. In boats, the bodies of the adventurers are carried to their final rest. Watching the ceremony, they bid farewell to their comrades with honor and respect. Crying, Laura is comforted by Edward, who also mourns the losses of the war. Sitting alone, Tyrros just watches the horizon, thinking about everything that happened. Approaching him, Nog asks if he can sit next to him for a moment. With a distant look, Tyrros just replies that he can stay. Sitting down, Nog apologizes for his loss and says he wishes things had been different. Tyrros replies that it's okay and that there's nothing to be done. Looking at the horizon, he says he should be grateful he didn't lose them both. With a touch on the shoulder, he says he doesn't blame Nog for what happened. He explains that Goliath was one of the few people he could relate to. They both thought they could make the world a much safer place. With a smile, he reveals that Goliath had a special fondness for monsters. As a child, he tried to help an injured goblin he found in the forest, but he discovered the goblin didn't need help, and his trust was betrayed. After signaling that the coast was clear, the goblin lured his companions into a trap. A group of goblins and a warrior appeared, ready to attack them all. The warrior killed everyone he knew, leaving only Goliath behind. He explains that Goliath blames himself and tries to find meaning by destroying monsters. He says the warrior's name was Grom, and that Goliath never got his revenge. Trembling, Nog says that revenge doesn't solve anything in the end. With a hand on his head, he explains that the anger has nowhere to go. He continues, saying that at the end of the road, you're always still angry. In a flashback, he remembers seeing his family dead amidst the flames. With a hateful gaze, he says, "You just keep looking for a way to appease the rage." Reaching out, he touches Nog's shoulder to try and comfort him. He says Goliath died with pride, knowing he protected his friends. With a smile, he asks if Goliath didn't die a hero in the end. Agreeing, Nog replies that yes, he died a true hero. Sitting together, he says he's proud of everyone, regardless of what happened. He remembers all his friends and how they saved others. In a memory, he sees a girl walking away, leaving him behind. Lying on the grass, he says he spent most of his childhood alone. Looking at Nog, he says he'd be in a different place without his friends. Lying on the grass, Tyrros says it's terrifying to be alone with so much hatred. With a smile, he thanks Nog for being a good friend to him. Nog replies that he always will be, as the two of them continue to sit on the hill. Then, a vision of their friends running happily appears as they talk. Showing the group of adventurers, the scene reveals them running and having fun. Watching the horizon, the group of friends enjoys the peaceful moment together. Suddenly, Tyros's expression changes, becoming serious and filled with worry. His face then contorts in shock, as if remembering something terrible. With the war over, a city slowly begins to recover. The adventurers' heroism spreads, and they are welcomed with a celebration. Amidst the crowd, people celebrate the victory and the end of the conflict. But for some, the feeling was different, marked by loss and pain. In a speech, a woman says they must remember those who are gone. She continues, saying they must move forward to protect the world. In a ritual, Nog says they should celebrate and remember the path they've chosen. Seeing Nog, a creature warns that the other system users survived. With a serious look, she turns and says she was expecting that. Walking through the forest, Nog suddenly stops, sensing something strange in the air. Gubble asks what's wrong, since they're almost home. With a sad look, he just starts to speak, seeming very regretful. In a memory, he blames himself for taking Gubble with him on the journey. Gubble asks if he's feeling guilty and tells him they should go back. Stopping, he says there's still something he needs to fix. Confused, Gubble asks what he wants to fix, since they already said they were going home. In a flashback, she remembers promising to fight for the adventurers. She recalls having to fight her own companions to protect them. Angrily, she asks if he knows what she had to do for them. Gubble says they went too far, and that the journey was supposed to be about making friends. She yells that all they did was destroy things and cause more trouble. With a smile, Nog says the elder will forgive her for everything that happened. He suggests they go home and forget that monsters and adventurers can't be friends. With a determined look, he says that even so, he can't give up. He remembers everything he did and how badly things turned out. Remembering Goliath's body, he feels guilty for everything that happened. He yells that he betrayed his friends after everything they did for him. Angrily, he says he lied to Tyrros, his own friend, about the death. Gubble interrupts him, shouting that she's his friend and she's there for him. Surprised, he repeats her words, realizing he's not alone on this journey. Gubble says the adventurers have become an obsession and he needs to choose. Mask in hand, she tells him to choose between her and the adventurer's life. Not knowing what to say, he just stares at her, thinking about his difficult decision. With a sad look, he apologizes but says he can't go back. Crying, she hears him say he hopes she can understand one day. After their farewell, the two go their separate ways. Elsewhere, Tyrros vents his anger, kicking a piece of wood. Sitting alone in a bar, he drinks to try to forget his problems. Suddenly, Nog appears and asks if he's drinking alone. Surprised, he asks what Nog is doing there since he thought he had left. Nog explains that he decided to stay a little longer with his friends after the war. With a serious look, he stares at Nog, processing the information he just heard. Sitting down next to him, Nog asks how he's feeling now. He replies that his best friend died and his father's sword won't respond to him. In a flashback, he remembers going too far and losing control. Taking a drink, he says the sword is now just a paperweight. Promptly, Pip begins to analyze the sword to understand what happened. He notices the weapon's status is sealed, but it's still the same sword. With an idea, Nog suggests they go train to warm up the sword. Apologizing, Tyrros says he's not in the mood to train right now. Then, he asks Nog to leave him alone for a while at the bar. Turning his back, Nog walks away, leaving Tyrros alone with his thoughts and his drink. Running through the forest, Gubble complains about Nog's stubbornness in not coming back. Angrily, she wonders if he doesn't remember everything she's done. She remembers how she always defended him from the bullies who bothered him in the village. Seeing the other goblins, she says she just wanted things to go back to normal. In a flashback, she wonders why everything had to change so suddenly. She then remembers that Nog also did a lot for her in the past. With a smile, she says that friends help each other, and that's why he came back. Putting on her mask, she prepares to move forward with her decision. Adjusting her glove, she gets ready for what she needs to do now. Then she runs through the forest, saying it's going to be just like old times. Near the lake, she sees Nog and shouts that she needs to be there for him. With tears in his eyes, Nog hears her shout, telling him not to worry. Meanwhile, at the bar, Tyrros remains seated alone, his back to everyone. He cries as he hears her voice vowing not to abandon her best friend. Taking a step, he tells Tyrros this is the way they need to go. When they arrive, they find Goliath's armor displayed as a memorial. With a serious look, Tyrros just stares at his fallen friend's armor. He then explains that the armor was placed there as a memorial for him. Suddenly, he notices something strange coming from his friend's armor. With wide eyes, he has a vision of Nog and Pip together. Cutting to the next scene, Gubble runs up the stairs, looking for Nog everywhere. Reaching the top, she looks around but doesn't find anyone there. Just then, a crack forms in the wall, drawing her attention to it. Right after, someone stomps heavily on the floor, revealing their presence. Coming face to face with the group, Tyrros and the others find her there. With a smile, he says she's back and that they were looking for her. Confused, Arya recalls him saying they were hunting boars in the forest. He then explains that he found it strange that Nog came back without her earlier. With a serious look, he asks if she's okay now. With a sad expression, she starts to explain what happened between her and Nog. She says they fought, and she ended up saying something she didn't mean. Looking down, Tyrros says he knows what it's like to feel that way. He continues, saying he understands the regret she's feeling now. Getting an idea, he says Nog went to train, which gives them some time. He asks if she knows the best way to apologize to a friend. With a smile, he says it's with a gift and that they can help. Excited, she replies that would be great and thanks everyone for their help. Smiling, he says he knows she just lost Goliath. The other girls laugh, saying he was very sad before Nog arrived. With a smile, he says Nog showed up and cheered him up a bit. Looking at Gubble, he asks if she's ready to go with them. Extending his hand, he says he owes her one for saving his life. With a handshake, the two seal the deal to help Nog. Lying on the grass, Nog laments, saying he doesn't know what to do anymore. Lying down, he grieves that he might end up losing his friends on all sides. Unsure of what to say, Pip scratches his head, saying he can't give advice. Then, he suggests Nog consider what friendships are built on. He shows the difference between a friendship based on trust and one based on lies. Agreeing, Nog says that all he did was lie to his friends. He believes it's impossible for them to see him as a friend now. After everything he's done, he thinks there's no going back. With a sad look, he says he just wishes there was another way. Picking up a stone, he prepares to make a difficult decision about his future. Tossing the stone into the lake, he says he knows Goliath didn't give him a choice. The stone skips on the water, creating several ripples on the lake's surface. Watching the stone sink, he says he understands that friendship is impossible. Getting up, he decides he will go back to say goodbye to his friends. He also says he will apologize to Gubble for his difficult choice. Pip calls out to him, saying that choosing the adventurer's life was his biggest mistake. Picking a flower, he says it's not worth losing everything for a dream. With flowers in hand, he calls to Pip, saying their journey is over. Back in town, they prepare to say goodbye to their friends. Holding a watch, Gubble wonders if that's the gift for Nog. Surprised, she hears Tyrros ask if she didn't have a lot of watches at home. With a laugh, he recalls her saying she had a surplus of them. In a flashback, she remembers lying to them about the watches. Nervously, she says that Nog likes to tinker with things, and that's why she got the gift. She notices that Tyrros is squeezing her shoulder too tightly and finds it strange. Laura asks where her house is, and Arya scolds her for the question. Feeling pain, she complains that Tyrros is hurting her shoulder with his grip. With a serious look, he insists on knowing where her house is. Seeing this, Arya grabs him, telling him he's hurting Gubble. Angrily, he yells for her not to touch him and shoves her away. Letting go of her shoulder, he just lets out a sinister and terrifying laugh. With a shove, he throws both girls to the ground. Laughing non-stop, he says they really managed to fool him. Worried, she can only call out his name, trying to understand the situation. His laughter continues uncontrollably, with a completely crazed expression. He then glares at her, still laughing in a creepy, sinister way. Suddenly, he stops laughing and asks if she was going to tell the truth. Grabbing her by the collar, he accuses them of being cruel murderers.